Hey guys, tonight we're going to lie here in the dark and talk about a job so strange, so emotionally demanding, that honestly, you definitely wouldn't survive it. I'm not talking about working night shifts or staying up late to review movies. I'm talking about the medieval profession of the paid mourner, people who were paid to cry at the funerals of complete strangers. Picture this. You're lying here right now, cozy under your blankets, phone charging on the nightstand. You close your eyes and try to imagine. No Netflix, no Spotify, no phone to scroll through when you're sad. You only have the sound of wind whistling through thatched roofs, dogs barking in the distance, and grief, real grief, raw grief, grief without any filter. Now add one more detail. You've just received a coin to sit and cry outside the door of someone you don't even know. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world right now, I'd really love to know, what time is it where you are? Any special sounds? Or is it just me and you in the darkness? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're somewhere in a small village in Europe, around the 13th century. The farming calendar tells you it's late autumn. The air has turned cold enough that your breath forms thin wisps of smoke. You don't own much. One set of clothes repeatedly patched, a worn wool cap, and wooden clogs that go clop-clop against the hard ground with every step. Food is scarce. Tonight's dinner was just a few slices of dark bread dipped in thin broth, made from turnips and old bones. Your life, frankly, is an exhausting cycle of survival. Harvest season ends, planting season begins, planting season ends, and then you huddle through the cold. There's nothing like career or passion like modern people love to discuss. You just need to survive the winter, that's all. And in a society where death lurks everywhere, from plague, from war, from even a common cold, funerals are something you see more often than any festival. The church bell just tolled, but not for evening prayer. That's the death bell. You know that sound. 3 short rings for a man, 2 for a woman, and 1 long drawn-out ring for a child. Today, 3 short rings. Some man in the village has just passed. You don't ask for his name, don't ask his age. You just quietly put on your cap, slip into your wooden clogs, and drag your feet toward the church, because you know there will be people there who need you, and you need them. Along the way, you meet some neighbors heading in the same direction. They don't speak, just nod silently in greeting. The village path is muddy from last night's rain, clay sticking heavily to your wooden clogs, making each step sound like the earth itself is whispering. You hear their whispers too, those walking beside you. An old woman murmuring prayers to younger men quietly discussing this year's barley prices. And you, what are you thinking about? Actually, you're thinking about something very mundane. You hope today's funeral has food. In medieval times, a funeral wasn't just a farewell to the dead, it was a social event. The deceased's family would open their doors to everyone, usually laying out a meal, sometimes bread, sometimes porridge, rarely a piece of salted meat. And of course, there was a special type of person who appeared at every funeral, neither relatives nor close friends. They were the ones hired to cry. You stop at the church gate. The stone church is grey, moss covering the walls, red roof tiles darkened by rain and sun. The corpse is wrapped in linen, laid on a wooden plank in the courtyard. Around it, the family clusters together, faces showing exhaustion, not just from grief, but from days of sleepless preparation. And there, you see them, a group of people in dark clothing, standing apart from the crowd. They don't talk, don't exchange words with anyone. They just stand there, eyes cast down, shoulders slightly slumped in a posture that's clearly been practiced. Those are the paid mourners, and among them, you recognize a face. Marjorie, widow of the blacksmith, who died last year, the woman who has cried at over 30 funerals in the past 6 months. What is she doing? She's taking a deep breath. You don't yet know what that means. But then, as the priest begins reciting the final prayers, Marjorie raises both hands to the sky, and a long, piercing wail tears through the gloomy afternoon air. That's not an ordinary cry. It has rhythm, pitch, even transitions between choked sobs. It's like an instrumental song soaked in tears. And strangely, you feel your own nose tingling. You didn't know the man in the coffin, never spoke to him once, but that wail seeps into somewhere deep in your chest, making your heart tighten. You look around. Everyone is crying. The family, the neighbors, even strangers. Tears mingle with the light rain beginning to fall. The space seems to shatter into tiny pieces from all the sobbing. And you wonder, how can someone cry so beautifully? How can they create such genuine emotion for someone they never knew? You don't know the answer yet, but you're about to, because in that dark twilight, as the funeral ends and people slowly file into the church for the small feast, Marjorie walks past you. She stops, looks you up and down, and says something you'll remember forever. You have sad eyes. Come to my house tomorrow morning. Then she walks away without looking back. You stand there in the churchyard, letting the light rain soak your clothes. You don't understand what's happening, but deep inside you feel something strange, like the first door to a dark room has just cracked open, and inside that room, there is crying. You barely sleep that night, not because you're excited. Excitement isn't really a luxury your life allows, but because your mind keeps drifting back to the cemetery, to Marjorie's words, to that sound she made, that wail that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than just the throat. You lie on your straw pallet, pulling your thin blanket up to your chin, and you listen to the night sounds around you, the wind scratching at the shutters, the distant hoot of an owl, your own breathing, and somewhere, faintly, you think you can still hear echoes of that cry. Morning comes slowly, reluctantly. The sky through the cracks in your shutters is the color of old pewter, heavy with clouds that look like they're carrying more rain. You sit up, your back aching from the hard surface you've slept on your whole life, and you pull on your clothes, the same clothes you wore yesterday, the only clothes you own. You run your fingers through your hair, not that it helps much, and you step outside. The village is already awake. Smoke rises from the cook fires. Women are drawing water from the well. Children chase each other between the houses with sticks pretending to be swords. Normal morning, but nothing feels normal to you today. Every face you pass, you find yourself studying it. How do they look when they're sad? How would they sound if they had to cry? You find Marjorie's house at the edge of the village, near the woods. It's smaller than you expected, just one room with a lean-to for storage. The roof patched in 3 different places with whatever materials could be scrounged. You hesitate at the door, raising your hand to knock, but before your knuckles touch the wood, you hear her voice from inside. Come in. Then, don't stand there letting the cold in. You push the door open. Inside, it's dim and smoky from the small fire in the center hearth, the smoke finding its way out through a hole in the roof. Marjorie sits on a 3-legged stool near the fire, stirring something in a clay pot. She doesn't look up when you enter. Sit, she says, pointing to another stool across from her. You sit. The warmth of the fire feels good against your cold skin. You look around the room, a sleeping pallet in the corner, some dried herbs hanging from the rafters, a wooden cross nailed to the wall, simple like every other house in the village. And yet, something feels different here. It takes you a moment to realize what it is. There are no sounds, no chickens scratching at the door, no children shouting outside, no dogs barking. The village noise seems to stop at her threshold. In here, there's only the crackle of the fire and the soft sound of Marjorie's wooden spoon against the pot. You ate already? She asks. You shake your head. She ladles some of whatever's in the pot into a wooden bowl and hands it to you. Porridge, thin, but warm. You eat quickly, grateful. She watches you with those eyes, the same eyes that cried so convincingly yesterday, but now they're calm, almost distant. You want to know how I do it, she says. Not a question, a statement. You nod, your mouth full of porridge. She leans back slightly, studying you the way a potter studies a lump of clay before touching it. Why? You swallow. The honest answer is simple. Because you're hungry. Because winter is coming. Because you saw how many funerals there are. How many people need someone to cry for them. And you saw that those who cry get fed. But you don't say that. Instead, you say, I don't know. I felt something. When you cried yesterday, I felt it here. You touch your chest. Marjorie's expression doesn't change, but something in her eyes shifts. Just slightly. That's the first thing, she says. Feeling it. If you don't feel it, they won't feel it. And if they don't feel it, you don't get paid. She stands up, walks to the door, and opens it. The village noise rushes back in chickens, children, dogs. She gestures for you to follow. Outside, the morning has brightened a little. Marjorie leads you through the village, past the well, past the church, to a small clearing at the edge of the graveyard. The same graveyard from yesterday. In the daylight, you can see it more clearly. The uneven mounds of earth. The simple wooden crosses, some with names carved, most without. A few fresh graves, the dirt still dark and damp. Marjorie stops at a grave that looks newer than the others. No cross yet, just a mound of earth with some wilted flowers scattered on top. She stands there for a long moment, silent. Then she turns to you. "This is where my husband is buried," she says. "The blacksmith died last winter. Fever took him in 3 days." You don't know what to say. You mumble something about being sorry. She waves your words away. "Don't be. He was a drunk and he beat me when he drank. But when he died, I cried. Not because I loved him, because that's what you do. That's what's expected." She looks at the grave, then back at you. "You see, the crying doesn't have to be real. It just has to look real. This confuses you, but yesterday, it sounded so real." She almost smiles. "Nothing real about it. I was thinking about the lamb I lost last spring. Sweet little thing, followed me everywhere. Wolves got it. That's what I was crying for, not some old man I never met." She lets that sink in for a moment. Then she walks to another grave, this one with a small wooden cross, the paint faded and peeling. This one's different. A girl, 12 years old, drowned in the river 3 summers ago. I knew her mother, used to trade eggs with her. Marjorie's voice softens, just a little. "When I cried at that funeral, I wasn't thinking about lambs. I was thinking about my own daughter, the one who didn't survive birth." You look at her, really look at her for the first time. She's younger than you thought yesterday, maybe 30, but her face is lined, weathered by grief and work and life. Her eyes are the kind of eyes that have seen too much. "Crying," she says, "is like drawing water from a well. The well has to have water in it first, otherwise you're just making noise." She walks back to the first grave, the one without a cross. She kneels down, touches the earth. "Your job, if you want it, is to find your water. Everyone has it somewhere. A loss, a fear, a loneliness, something that makes your chest ache when you think about it. You find that thing, and you keep it safe, keep it close, and when you need to cry, you bring it out." She looks up at you, and for the first time, you see something like warmth in her expression. "Now, tell me what makes you sad." You open your mouth, but nothing comes out. You've never been asked this before. Sadness is just there, like the sky, like the rain. You don't think about where it comes from. You stand there, silent, and Marjorie waits. She doesn't rush you. She just kneels by that grave, her hand resting on the earth, and waits. And slowly, like water seeping through cracks in a stone wall, something starts to rise in you. A memory, a face, a voice you haven't heard in years. Your mother. You were young when she died, so young that you barely remember her face. Just a blur of kindness, the smell of bread, a hand smoothing your hair. But you remember the day she stopped breathing. You remember being pushed aside by the women who came to prepare the body. You remember sitting outside the door, alone, while inside they washed her and wrapped her and prayed over her. And you remember not crying, not a single tear, because you were too stunned, too young to understand that crying was allowed. You've carried that moment with you your whole life, tucked away in some corner of your heart, never examined, never opened. But now, standing in this graveyard with this strange woman, it cracks open, your eyes burn, your throat tightens, and before you know it, a tear slips down your cheek. Marjorie stands up, brushes the dirt from her knees, and walks over to you. She doesn't say anything, she just nods, once, and touches your shoulder. "There it is," she says quietly. "That's your water. Don't waste it, and don't share it with anyone. Keep it for the work." She starts walking back toward the village. You follow, still shaky, still feeling that crack in your chest where something old and buried has just been unearthed. You wipe your face with your sleeve, embarrassed. But Marjorie doesn't look back. At the edge of the graveyard, she stops and turns. "Tomorrow," she says, "we start learning how to use it. Come at dawn, and bring something to eat. You'll need your strength." She walks away, disappearing between the houses, leaving you standing there with your mother's memory fresh in your mind and a strange, terrifying, hopeful feeling growing in your chest. You're going to become a mourner. You're going to learn how to cry for strangers, and somewhere deep inside, you know that this will change everything. You show up at Marjorie's door before dawn the next morning, just as the sky is beginning to lighten from black to deep blue. You've brought what you could, a small heel of bread, half an apple, a handful of nuts wrapped in a cloth. It's not much, but it's something. Marjorie takes it without comment, adds it to her own meager stores, and gestures for you to sit by the fire. Today, she doesn't offer you porridge. Today, she starts talking before you're even fully settled on the stool. Do you know why people hire us? She asks. Why they don't just cry themselves. You consider this. It seems obvious they're too sad, maybe, to overcome with grief to perform, but you sense that's not the answer she wants, so you stay silent. Because grief is private, she says, but a funeral is public. You understand the difference. You nod slowly, though you're not entirely sure you do. A man loses his wife. Marjorie continues. Inside, he's destroyed. His world is gone. But at the funeral, everyone's watching him. The neighbors, the priest, his children, they're all looking to see how he grieves. Is he grieving enough? Is he grieving properly? If he breaks down completely, they'll say he's weak, that his faith isn't strong enough to accept God's will. If he doesn't cry at all, they'll say he didn't love her. So what's he supposed to do? She pauses, letting the question hang in the smoky air. That's where we come in. We cry so he doesn't have to. We carry the public grief so he can keep his private grief private. She leans forward, her eyes intense. We're not just making noise. We're performing a function. We're giving the family permission to mourn however they need to, because we're doing the public part for them. This is a new way of thinking about it. You'd always assumed the paid mourners were just there, part of the ritual, like the priest and the coffin and the grave. You never thought about why the church has opinions about this. Of course, Marjorie says with a hint of bitterness. The priests will tell you that grief should be directed to God, that weeping should be prayer. But priests don't have to bury their children and then go back to the fields the next day. Priests don't have to worry about who's going to plant the spring crops now that their husband's dead. She stands up, walks to a small wooden chest in the corner, and lifts the lid. Inside, folded carefully, are several pieces of dark cloth. She pulls one out and hands it to you. It's a simple shawl, coarse wool, dyed black with something that still smells faintly of walnuts and soot. This was my mother's, she says, then mine. Now it's yours, if you want it. Put it on. You drape the shawl over your shoulders. It's heavier than you expected, and scratchy against your neck, but as you adjust it, you feel something shift inside you. The shawl isn't just cloth, it's a uniform, a costume, a signal to everyone who sees you that today, you are not yourself. Today, you are grief. Good, Marjorie says, studying you. Now follow me. There's something you need to see. She leads you out of the village, past the last houses and into the fields. The sun is fully up now, pale and weak through the clouds, but the day is cold. Your breath forms clouds as you walk. Marjorie moves quickly, her worn shoes sure on the muddy path, and you struggle to keep up. After about a mile, you see it, a small cluster of buildings, smaller than your village, more scattered. Smoke rises from one of them. As you get closer, you hear it, a sound you're starting to recognize. Crying, but not the organized, performative crying of a funeral. This is raw, ragged, broken. Marjorie stops at the edge of the settlement. Wait here, she says. Watch, listen, don't speak. She walks toward the house where the crying comes from. You watch as she approaches the door, as she's let in by a woman with a red, swollen face. The door closes behind her. You stand there in the cold, shivering under your new shawl, and you wait. The crying continues. Then, after a few minutes, it changes. You can't quite explain how it's still crying, still grief, but something is different. The raw edges smooth out. The broken sounds find a rhythm. It's as if someone took a tangled mess of threads and started weaving them into something coherent. You stand there for what feels like hours. Your feet go numb. Your nose runs, but you don't move. You watch that door, and you listen. Finally, the door opens. Marjorie comes out, followed by the woman. They embrace briefly, and then Marjorie walks back toward you. Behind her, the woman stands in the doorway, not crying now, just watching. There's something in her face that wasn't there before. Not peace, exactly, but maybe acceptance. Marjorie reaches you, and without a word, starts walking back toward the village. You fall into step beside her, bursting with questions but afraid to ask. She walks in silence for a long time, until the cluster of houses is just a smudge behind you. That woman, Marjorie finally says, lost her son yesterday. He was 8 years old. Fever. He died in her arms while she was trying to get him to drink water. You feel that crack in your chest again, the one from yesterday. 8 years old. A child. She couldn't stop crying. Marjorie continues. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't pray. Her husband sent for me because he was afraid she'd make herself sick. He needed her to function, to help with the other children, with the burial preparations, but she couldn't. The grief had her. You think about what you heard, the shift, the change in the crying. What did you do? Marjorie glances at you. I cried with her. Not for her, with her. I sat beside her, held her hand, and I cried. Not my grief, hers. I let her grief come through me. She pauses. When you cry with someone, really cry with them, something happens. The grief gets shared. It gets lighter. Not gone, never gone, but lighter, shareable, bearable. You walk a few more steps, processing this. That's the secret they don't tell you. Marjorie says quietly, we're not just performers. We're vessels. We hold what people can't hold alone. We carry it for them, just for a little while, so they can put it down and rest. You think about your mother's death, about sitting alone outside that door while the women prepared her body, about having no one to cry with you, no one to share the weight. You understand, suddenly, why that memory still aches after all these years. Not just because you lost her, because you carried it alone. Do they know, you ask, the families, do they know we're not really grieving their dead? Marjorie stops walking. She turns to face you, and for a moment, her expression is unreadable. Some do, most don't want to know. They just want the crying to happen. It's like the bell tolling, like the prayers, like the grave itself. It's part of what a funeral should be. She starts walking again, faster now. But here's the thing, after a while, the line gets blurry. You cry at so many funerals, for so many strangers, that they stop being strangers. You carry so much grief that some of it sticks, becomes yours. She's quiet for a moment. That's the danger of this work. You can fill up with other people's sadness until there's no room left for your own, until you don't know anymore what you're crying for, their loss or the accumulation of every loss you've ever witnessed. You reach the edge of the village. Marjorie stops at the path leading to her house. Tomorrow, we start learning the techniques, how to cry on command, how to modulate your voice, how to move your body. But I wanted you to see this first, to understand that what we do matters. It's not just pretending. It's a kind of medicine, grief medicine. She looks at you with those old, tired eyes. Are you sure you want this? Because once you start carrying other people's grief, you can never fully put it down. You think about it, about your empty stomach, about the coming winter, about the long cold months with nothing to do but shiver and wait. And you think about that feeling yesterday when you let yourself remember your mother, when that tear finally fell. It hurt, but it also felt right, like something that had been stuck for years finally came loose. You nod. Marjorie nods back. Good. Then tomorrow, we begin. Now go home and rest. You'll need it. She turns and walks toward her house, leaving you standing there in the cold with a scratchy black shawl around your shoulders and a strange new understanding of what grief really is. Dawn comes cold and sharp, the kind of morning where frost paints every surface and your breath hangs in the air like ghost messages you can't quite read. You're at Marjorie's door before the sun fully clears the horizon, wrapped in your new black shawl, stamping your feet to keep the blood moving. When she opens the door, she doesn't greet you, just gestures you inside and points to the stool by the fire. Today, the fire is bigger than usual, the room almost warm. Marjorie has cleared the center of the floor, pushing her few possessions against the walls. She stands in the middle of the cleared space, arms crossed, studying you like a farmer studying a field before planting. Take off the shawl, she says. Fold it carefully. Put it on the chest. You do as she says. Without the shawl, you feel exposed, lighter, like you've shed more than just cloth. Stand here. She points to a spot directly in front of her, feet shoulder-width apart, hands at your sides. Relax your shoulders. No, more than that. You're carrying tension in your neck. Drop it. You try to relax, but the more you try, the more aware you become of every muscle, every joint, every breath. Marjorie circles you slowly, like a cat examining a new mouse. Grief lives in the body, she says, her voice low, almost lecturing. Before it reaches the voice, before it reaches the eyes, it's in the body. The way you hold yourself, the way you breathe, the way you stand. She stops behind you. If your body is tight, the grief can't come through. It gets stuck, blocked. You end up making noise instead of feeling. So first, we teach your body to open. She steps back in front of you. Close your eyes. Don't peek. You close them. The fire crackles. Somewhere outside, a rooster crows. Now breathe slowly, in through your nose, out, through your mouth. Feel the air moving through you. Feel your chest rise, your belly expand. Don't think about crying yet. Just breathe. You breathe in, out, in, out. The world narrows to just this. The warmth of the fire on one side of your face, the cool air on the other, the sound of your own breath. Good, Marjorie says. Now bring your mother into your mind. Just her face, nothing else. The face appears blurry, faded like an old painting left in the sun. But there, the kindness you remember, the hands smoothing your hair. Don't chase the memory, just let it be there. Let it sit in front of you like a candle in a dark room. You breathe, the face hovers, and then, without warning, something shifts in your chest. That crack from yesterday opens a little wider. Feel that. Marjorie's voice is soft, almost distant. That weight right there, that's grief. Don't push it away. Don't grab it. Just let it be there. Let it have space in your body. The weight grows. It presses against your ribs, fills your throat, makes your eyes sting. You want to cry. You want to let it out. But Marjorie's voice stops you. Not yet. Don't release it. Just hold it. Let it fill you. Let it settle into every corner. This is harder than letting it out. The weight wants to escape, wants to become sound, become tears. But you hold it, as she said. You let it fill you. Your chest aches. Your throat tightens. Your jaw clenches now. Marjorie says, open your eyes. You open them. The room swims back into focus. Marjorie stands before you, watching carefully. The weight is still there, inside you, but somehow it's different now. Manageable, like a tool waiting to be used. That's the first lesson, she says. Grief is a thing you can hold. It's not just something that happens to you. It's something you can pick up, carry, and put down. Most people never learn this. They let grief carry them instead. She walks to the fire and stirs it, sending sparks up the chimney. Now we work on the voice. She leads you through exercises that feel absurd at first, humming from deep in your chest, making sounds like a wounded animal, practicing the difference between a sob and a wail and a moan. She demonstrates, and her voice fills the small room with sounds that make your skin prickle. Not loud, exactly, but resonant. They vibrate in your bones. Your voice is an instrument, she explains between demonstrations. You have to know how to tune it, how to play it. Too high and it sounds like hysteria. That's for certain situations, but not most. Too low and it sounds like moaning. That's for the beginning, for setting the mood. The real skill is moving between them, finding the notes that match what the family needs to hear. She has you practice a simple wail, just one note, held and then broken at the end. Yours comes out thin, reedy, nothing like the rich sound she produced. She shakes her head, from the chest, not the throat. The throat is just the passage. The sound comes from here. She presses her hand against her own chest, right over her heart. The grief lives here. The sound carries it out. If you make sound from the throat, it's empty, just noise. From the chest, it's real. You try again. This time, you think of your mother's face, of the weight you were holding earlier. You let the sound rise from that weight, from that ache in your chest. The sound that comes out is still not beautiful, not as rich as Marjorie's, but something shifts. It feels connected. It feels true. Marjorie nods, just slightly. Again, hold it longer this time. You practice until your throat is raw and your chest aches from the effort. Marjorie corrects your posture, your breathing, the angle of your head. She has you cry standing, cry kneeling, cry with your hands covering your face, and cry with your arms outstretched. Each position tells a different story. She says, hands covering the face, says I can't bear to look. Arms outstretched, says why have you taken them? Kneeling says, I am small before this loss. You have to know which story the family needs. By midday, you're exhausted in a way you've never been before. Not from physical labor, you've worked harder in the fields, but from something deeper, emotional labor, though you don't have words for that concept yet. You just know that you feel hollowed out, scraped clean, like a pot after all the contents have been poured out. Marjorie sees it. She hands you a bowl of the porridge you brought yesterday, reheated, and tells you to eat. You did well, she says, settling onto her own stool. Better than most on the first day. You have the capacity. That's not something that can be taught. You eat slowly, grateful for the warmth. How long does it take to learn everything? She considers this. Some learn in weeks, some take years, some never really learn. They can make the sounds, but the sounds are empty. You can always tell. The family can always tell. even if they don't know why. They just feel that something's missing. She stares into the fire for a long moment. I've been doing this for 12 years. I'm still learning. Every funeral teaches something new. Every death is different. Every family grieves differently. You have to read them, understand them, become them for a little while. That's the real skill, not the crying itself, but the reading. You think about this, about walking into a house full of strangers and knowing, instantly, what kind of grief they need to hear. It seems impossible. You'll learn, Marjorie says, as if reading your thoughts. It's like farming. At first, you don't know when to plant, when to harvest, how to read the sky, but after enough seasons, you just know. Your body knows. Your bones know. She stands up, signaling that the lesson is over for today. Tomorrow, we work on movement, how to walk in a funeral procession, how to stand at the grave, how to tear your clothes without actually tearing them. Cloth is expensive. You can't keep ruining your only outfit. She almost smiles. There are tricks. You'll learn them. You put your bowl aside and stand, reaching for your shawl. As you fold it carefully, the way she showed you, you realize something. Marjorie, you say, who taught you? She's silent for a long moment. The fire crackles. The wind picks up outside, rattling the shutters. My mother taught me, she finally says. And her mother taught her. And her mother before that. 4 generations of mourners in my family. I'm the last. She doesn't say more, and you don't ask. But as you walk back to your own small hut through the cold afternoon, you think about what it means to be the last of something. To carry not just your own grief, and the grief of strangers, but the grief of a whole line of women who came before you, all of them crying for people they never knew. You wrap the shawl tighter around yourself. It smells faintly of walnuts and soot, and something else, something that might be age, might be memory, might be all those generations of grief seeping into the fibers. You're carrying it now, their shawl, their weight, their legacy. Tomorrow, you learn to move like a mourner. Today, you just keep walking, one foot in front of the other, back to your cold, empty hut, with your mother's face hovering just behind your eyes, and a new kind of exhaustion in your bones. The days blur together into a rhythm you never expected to find in learning how to cry. Each morning, you arrive at Marjorie's door before dawn. Each morning, she pushes you further, demands more, finds new ways to crack you open and peer inside. You've stopped counting how many times you've cried in the past weeks. Cried for your mother, cried for Marjorie's dead daughter, cried for lambs and lost harvests, and all the small griefs you've tucked away over the years without even noticing. Today, Marjorie meets you at the door with a different expression. There's something almost like anticipation in her eyes. Enough sitting by the fire, she says, today, we go to work. Your heart jumps. A funeral, a practice funeral. There's one tomorrow in the next village, an old woman, natural death, nothing complicated. But before I let you anywhere near a real family, you need to learn how to move, how to be seen, how to make the body tell the same story as the voice. She leads you not to the graveyard this time, but to a field beyond the village, a fallow field, empty and brown, with a single old oak tree at its center. The sky is low and gray, threatening snow. In the distance, you can see the thin line of smoke from the village chimneys. This is our stage, Marjorie says, gesturing at the empty field. The funeral procession will be the road. The grave will be that tree. The family will be everywhere and nowhere. You have to perform for all of them at once. She positions you at one end of the field, near the path. Walk toward the tree, but not like you're walking to fetch water. Walk like you're following a coffin. Let me see it. You start walking. Immediately, she stops you. No, that's just walking. Your body is saying nothing. Start again. You try again, this time letting your shoulders drop. Your head bows slightly. You take smaller steps, slower steps. Better, but your arms are just hanging there. What are they doing? You don't know. You've never thought about what your arms do when you walk. Grief has weight. Marjorie calls from behind you. Show me that weight. Let it pull you down. Let it make every step an effort. You think about the weight you've been learning to hold in your chest. You let it spread. Let it settle into your limbs, your back, your legs. Your steps become heavier, slower. Your arms feel like they're carrying something invisible. Yes, Marjorie says quietly. That's it. Keep going. You reach the tree and stop. Now what? Now you're at the grave. The coffin is being lowered. Show me what your body does. You stand there, uncertain. Should you kneel? Should you cover your face? Should you reach out toward the tree like you're reaching for the dead? Don't think, Marjorie says. Feel what's happening inside you. You close your eyes. The weight is there, heavy in your chest. You think about the old woman you'll be mourning tomorrow. You don't know her, have never seen her face, but she was someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone's whole world. And now she's gone. The weight shifts, grows. Your knees bend. Not kneeling, not yet, but buckling slightly under the weight. Your hands lift, just a little, palms turned outward. Your head tilts back, just enough to show your face to the empty sky. When you open your eyes, Marjorie is standing a few feet away, watching with an expression you can't quite read. Good, she says. Very good. You have the instinct. Now we refine it. She spends the next hour putting you through positions, teaching you the difference between grief that crumbles, body folding inward, hands covering face, and grief that rages, arms outstretched, head thrown back, chest open to the sky. Between grief, that's fresh, sharp movements, sudden collapses, and grief, that's worn, slow, heavy, resigned. Each family needs something different, she explains, adjusting your arm in a kneeling pose. Some need to see themselves in you, their grief reflected back. Others need to see grief they can aspire to. The idea that their pain is valid, is enough, is worthy of this kind of expression. You have to be a mirror and a window at the same time. By midday, your body aches from all the positions, all the movements, all the ways you've twisted yourself into grief's various shapes. But Marjorie isn't finished. Now we add the voice. Walk to the tree again, but this time, let us hear you. You start walking, heavy steps, bowed head. As you move, you let the sound rise from your chest. Not words, just sound. A low moan that builds and fades with each step. Louder, Marjorie calls, let it fill the field. The family needs to hear you from the road, from the village, from everywhere. You push the sound out, let it grow. It feels strange at first, making so much noise in this empty field, but then something shifts. The sound and the movement start to work together. Each step feeds the moan. Each moan deepens the step. You're not walking and crying anymore. You're just grieving, fully, completely, with your whole body. When you reach the tree, you don't stop. You let your knees give way. Let yourself sink to the cold ground. Let your hands press into the dead grass. The moan becomes a wail, then breaks into sobs. You're not performing anymore. You're not sure what you're doing. You've lost track of where you end and the grief begins. And then Marjorie's hand is on your shoulder, firm and warm. Come back, she says quietly. That's enough. Come back now. You gasp, suck in air, realize you've been crying so hard you forgot to breathe properly. The field swims back into focus, the grey sky, the bare oak, Marjorie's weathered face looking down at you with something like concern. You went deep, she says. Too deep, that's not safe. She helps you stand, leads you to the tree, and sits you down against its trunk. She sits beside you, close enough that you can feel her warmth. In a real funeral, you can't go that deep, she says. If you lose yourself completely, you can't do the work. You become just another grieving person, and the family loses what they hired you for. You have to stay partly outside, watching yourself, controlling what you're doing, even as you feel it, really feel it. You have to maintain that distance. You wipe your face with your sleeve, still shaky. How? Practice, years of practice. You learn to touch the grief without falling into it, to swim in the shallow water instead of drowning in the deep. She pauses. That's the hardest lesson. Most people never learn it. They either stay completely dry, their crying is fake, empty, or they drown every time. The ones who can do both, who can walk that line, those are the ones who get hired again and again. You sit in silence for a while, watching your breath cloud in the cold air. Your body feels wrung out, empty, but also strangely peaceful. Like after a hard day's work when you know you've earned your rest. There's one more thing you need to learn before tomorrow, Marjorie says. The tearing. She stands up, brushes off her skirt, and gestures for you to do the same. Cloth is expensive. You can't actually tear your clothes at every funeral, so we fake it. She shows you how the way you grip your collar or your sleeve, the way you pull just enough to make it look like you're tearing, but not enough to damage the fabric. The way you accompany the gesture with a cry, so no one's watching your hands too closely. The way you can even tear a seam you've pre-weakened, if you want to be really convincing. You'll learn to judge which families expect real tearing and which will accept the gesture, she says. Wealthy families, sometimes they want the real thing. They'll pay for the cloth you ruin. Poor families, they know the value of fabric. They just want the idea. You practice the gesture until your hands cramp. Pull, cry, release, pull, cry, release, over and over until it becomes automatic. As the light begins to fade, Marjorie calls a stop. She walks with you back toward the village, both of you silent, too tired for words. At the path to your hut, she stops you. Tomorrow, she says, you'll cry for a stranger in front of strangers. You'll wear the shawl. You'll walk in the procession. You'll stand at the grave, and you'll do it well. She looks at you with those old, tired eyes. I wouldn't send you if I didn't believe that. You nod, not trusting your voice. One more thing. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small piece of cloth, black, like the shawl, but smaller, roughly square. Put this in your shoe tomorrow. When you need to cry, press your foot down on it. The discomfort will help. It's an old trick. You take the cloth, confused, discomfort helps. Grief and pain live in the same part of the body, she says. A little pain can unlock a lot of grief. Don't overuse it. You don't want to rely on tricks, but for your first time, it helps. She walks away before you can thank her. You stand there in the fading light, holding the small square of cloth, trying to imagine tomorrow. A real funeral, real strangers, real grief, and you, carrying some of it for them. You think about going deep in the field today, about losing yourself so completely. You think about Marjorie's warning, don't drown, stay in the shallow water. You put the cloth in your pocket and walk to your hut. Tonight, you'll try to rest. Tonight, you'll try not to think about tomorrow. But as you lie on your straw pallet, staring at the dark ceiling, you know you'll fail. Tomorrow is coming, whether you're ready or not. And somewhere in the village, an old woman's body is being washed and wrapped, her family gathered around her, not knowing that a stranger will soon be crying for her, not knowing that you're about to become part of their story, their grief, their memory of this day. You press your foot against the cloth in your pocket, just to feel it, just to remind yourself that you're here, in this hut, in this body, in this life. Tomorrow, for a little while, you'll be someone else. You'll be grief itself. You'll close your eyes and wait for dawn. Dawn comes cold and clear, the kind of morning that makes the world look sharper, more defined, like everything's been outlined in black ink. You lie on your pallet for a long moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on you before you've even moved. Then you get up, you dress, you fold Marjorie's shawl carefully and tuck the small square of cloth into your shoe, just as she instructed. You don't eat. Your stomach is too tight, too full of something that might be fear or might be anticipation. You're not sure there's a difference anymore. Marjorie is waiting at the edge of the village, wrapped in her own shawl, a small bundle in her hands. She nods when she sees you and falls into step beside you without a word. The two of you walk toward the next village, in silence, your breaths forming clouds that mingle and dissolve in the cold air. The other village is smaller than yours, just a huddle of houses around a tiny church. Even from a distance, you can see signs of a funeral. People gathered outside one of the larger houses, smoke rising from its chimney, the slow movement of bodies in and out of the door. As you get closer, you hear it, the low murmur of voices, the occasional sob, the creak of cartwheels. Marjorie stops at the edge of the village. This is where I leave you, she says. You go alone from here. Find the other mourners. There will be at least 2 or 3. Watch them. Follow their lead. Do what they do when they do it. Don't try to stand out. Don't try to be special. Just blend in and do the work. You stare at her, suddenly terrified. You're not coming. You don't need me there. You need to do this yourself. She presses the small bundle into your hands. Bread and cheese. Eat some before you go in. You'll need the strength. And remember, stay in the shallow water. Feel it, but don't drown. She turns and walks away before you can protest. You watch her go, her figure growing smaller against the grey fields, and you feel more alone than you have since your mother died. Then you turn toward the village, toward the funeral, toward your first real test. You eat some of the bread and cheese as you walk, chewing mechanically, barely tasting it. Your heart is pounding. Your hands are cold despite the shawl. You reach the house where the people are gathered and stop at the edge of the crowd, unsure what to do next. A woman spots you, one of the family. You can tell by her red eyes and the way she's clutching a small cross. She looks at your shawl, at your face, and something in her expression shifts. Relief, recognition. Are you one of the mourners? She asks, her voice raw. You nod, not trusting your voice. Thank God, we only have 2. We were hoping for at least 3. Please, come in, warm yourself by the fire. The procession starts in an hour. She leads you inside. The house is crowded with people, most of them standing, some sitting on benches along the walls. In the corner, near the hearth, you see them, 2 women in dark shawls, sitting together, not speaking to anyone. They look up when you enter, and you feel their eyes on you, assessing, measuring, judging, dodging. You sit down near them, not too close, not too far. One of them, an older woman with deep lines around her mouth, leans toward you. First time, she asks quietly. You nod. Just follow us. Don't lead, don't lag. Match our pace, match our volume. If you're not sure what to do, do what I do. She pauses, studying you, and breathe. First-timers always forget to breathe. You nod again, grateful for the advice. The other mourner, younger than the first but older than you, gives you a small, tight smile. Then both of them turn away, focusing inward, preparing themselves. You try to do the same. You think about your mother's face. You think about the weight in your chest. You press your foot down in your shoe, feeling the small square of cloth, letting the discomfort ground you. You breathe, the way Marjorie taught you. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel the air move through you. That an hour passes. Someone brings you bread and ale, and you eat and drink without tasting. The room fills with more people. The priest arrives in his dark robes. The family gathers near the door, and you see the coffin for the first time, a simple wooden box, plain but well made, carried by 4 men from the village. The old woman inside, someone's mother, someone's grandmother, someone's whole world. The procession forms. The priest leads, carrying a cross. Then the coffin, carried by the pallbearer. Then the family, walking close behind. And then the mourners, you and the other 2 women, walking together, slightly apart from the family but clearly part of the ritual. You start walking, your feet move, your body remembers the practice in the field, the heavy steps, the bowed head, the weight in every movement. You let the sound rise from your chest, a low moan, matching the volume of the women beside you. Not too loud, not too soft, just present, just there. The road to the church is lined with villagers, watching in silence. You feel their eyes on you, but you don't look up. You keep your head bowed, your eyes on the ground, your moan steady and low. Step after step after step. At the church, you stop. The coffin is carried inside for the mass. The mourners wait outside. You're not needed inside, not yet. The older woman motions for you to sit on a low stone wall near the church door. You did well, she says quietly. The walk is the hardest part for most people. You kept the rhythm. You nod, still shaky, still feeling the weight. The grave is next, she continues. That's where they need us most. When the coffin goes into the ground, that's when the family breaks. That's when we have to be strongest. You wait. The mass seems to take forever, but also no time at all. Then the church doors open, and the coffin comes out again, carried back into the grey light. The procession reforms, this time heading for the graveyard behind the church. The grave is open, a dark wound in the cold earth, surrounded by piles of dirt. The coffin is lowered on ropes, creaking and groaning. The family gathers at the edge, their faces tight with grief. The priest begins the final prayers. End. Then the older woman starts to cry. It's not the moan from the procession. This is different, sharper, more broken. Full sobs that rack her body, that make her reach out toward the grave, as if she could pull the coffin back. The younger woman joins her, matching the rhythm, building on it, creating a wall of sound that fills the graveyard. You join them. You think about your mother. You think about the weight. You press your foot hard against the cloth in your shoe, and you cry. The sound that comes out of you surprises you. It's deeper than your practice, more ragged, more real. You feel tears streaming down your face, feel your body shaking, feel your hands reaching out toward the grave without your permission. You're not performing anymore. You're not even thinking. You're just grieving. Grieving for this woman you never knew. Grieving for your mother. Grieving for every loss you've ever carried. The older woman's hand closes on your arm, squeezing hard. A warning, a reminder, stay in the shallow water. You try. You pull back just a little, find the edge of the grief instead of its center. You keep crying, keep the sound going, but you also start to watch yourself, to feel yourself crying without being completely lost in it. It's like learning to walk on ice, part of you on top, part of you aware of the deep water below. The prayers end. The family starts to throw handfuls of dirt onto the coffin, a final gesture, a last goodbye. The mourner's cries soften, become gentler, become the sound of grief subsiding instead of grief raging. You follow the other women's lead, letting your sobs fade to sniffles, letting your body slowly still, and then it's over. The family turns from the grave. People begin to drift back toward the house, where food and drink await. The older woman touches your arm again. "Good work," she says quietly. "Wait here. They'll pay us before we leave." You stand by the grave, catching your breath, wiping your face with your sleeve. Your body feels strange, light and heavy at the same time, empty and full. The younger woman walks over to you. "You're first," she asks. You nod. "You did well, really well. I've seen first-timers freeze, faint, forget to cry at all. You stayed with it." She pauses. "But you went deep. I could see it. Be careful with that." Before you can respond, the woman who first greeted you at the house approaches. She's carrying a small leather pouch, which she presses into your hand. "For your work today," she says. "We're grateful. Mother would have been honored to have such mourners." You mumble something appropriate, tuck the pouch into your pocket, and walk back toward the edge of the village. Only when you're alone on the path do you open it. Coins. More coins than you've held at one time in months. Enough for food, for firewood, for surviving the winter. You stand there in the cold, holding the pouch, and you feel something strange happening in your chest. Not grief this time, not weight, something lighter, warmer, pride, purpose. You're not sure, but as you start walking back toward your village, you know one thing for certain. You did it. You cried for a stranger, and you got paid. You're a mourner now. Winter settles over the village like a heavy blanket, cold and gray and endless. But for the first time in your life, you're not dreading it. The coins from your first funeral bought firewood, bought extra food, bought a thicker blanket for your pallet. You still live in the same small hut, still wear the same patched clothes under your mourner's shawl. But something has shifted. You have a purpose now, a place in the world. The funerals come in waves. Some weeks, 3 or 4, some weeks, none. But each time Marjorie appears at your door or sends word through a neighbor, you go. You walk to whatever village needs you, find the other mourners, blend in, do the work, collect your coins. You're learning to read the families, to sense what kind of grief they need. You're learning to stay in the shallow water, most of the time, and you're learning about the business. It's Marjorie who teaches you this part, sitting by her fire on the days when there are no funerals, when the snow piles up outside and the world goes quiet. "Not all grief is the same," she explains one afternoon, stirring a pot of thin soup. "And not all funerals pay the same. You have to know what you're worth." She reaches into a small wooden box beside her hearth and pulls out a handful of coins, spreading them on the floor between you. "This," she says, pointing to the smallest coin, "is what you get for a child." Not because their grief is small, it's the biggest grief there is, but because the family is usually young, just starting out. They don't have much. You take what they offer, and you don't complain. She points to a larger coin. "This is for an old person, natural death, grown children, maybe some savings. They can pay a little more." She points to the largest coin, silver instead of copper. "And this is for a wealthy death, a merchant, a landowner, someone with status. These funerals are different. More mourners, more ceremony, more expectations, and more money." You study the coins, trying to memorize them, to understand the hierarchy they represent. But it's not just about the family. Marjorie continues. It's about the death itself. A sudden death pays more than an expected one. A death by violence pays more than a death by illness. A death that leaves young children that pays the most, because the grief is so raw, so public. Everyone wants to see that grief performed properly. This strikes you as strange, even a little wrong. "So we charge more for worse deaths." "We don't charge," Marjorie corrects you. "They offer, and they offer more when the death is harder, because they need us more. Think about it. If your old grandmother dies after years of illness, you've had time to prepare. You've done some of your grieving already. But if your husband is crushed by a cartwheel on his way to the mill, if your child drowns in the river on a sunny afternoon, you haven't prepared for that. You can't. You need help carrying that grief, because it's too heavy to carry alone." She lets that sink in, then adds, "And they remember. The families who paid well for a hard death, they'll send for you again when the next death comes. They'll recommend you to their neighbors. A mourner who does good work at a hard death builds a reputation. Reputation, another new concept. You're starting to realize that this work, which seems so simple at first, just crying, is actually as complex as any craft, with its own rules and hierarchies and skills. The other mourners, you say slowly, the ones I've worked with, they all seem to know each other. Is there a group, a guild? Marjorie almost smiles. Not a guild. The church wouldn't allow that. But yes, we know each other. We work together, recommend each other, cover for each other. When someone's sick or overbooked, there's an understanding. She leans forward, lowering her voice, even though there's no one else in the hut. And there are territories. You need to know them. The mourners from the next valley, they don't come here unless invited. We don't go there. Everyone has their area, their villages, their families. Respect that, and you'll have work for life. Cross it, and you'll find yourself with no one to work with and no one to recommend you. You file this away, understanding it instinctively. You've seen how villages protect their own, how strangers are viewed with suspicion. Of course, the mourners would have their own version of that. What about the church? You ask. The priests, what do they think of us? Marjorie's expression darkens slightly. They tolerate us. Most of them, the old priests, the ones who've seen enough death, they understand what we do. They know we help families through something that prayer alone can't always fix. But some of the younger ones, the ones fresh from the monastery with all their book learning, they don't like us. They say we're pagan, that we're performing instead of praying, that grief should be private, between the soul and God. She stirs the soup vigorously, as if working out frustration. Just last year, a priest in the next county tried to ban paid mourners from his parish, said it was sinful to profit from sorrow. Lasted about 3 months. The families complained so much, they needed us. You see, needed the crying, needed the ritual, that the bishop overruled him. She almost smiles. We're useful. The church knows it, even if they don't like to admit it. The soup is ready. Marjorie ladles some into 2 bowls and hands you one. You eat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, listening to the wind outside. Tomorrow, Marjorie says eventually, there's a funeral in the village by the mill. A young man, hunting accident. His wife is pregnant with their first child. She looks at you steadily. This will be a hard one. Sudden death, young widow, unborn child, all the things that pay well because they hurt most. I want you to lead. Your heart stops. Lead me. You've done 6 funerals now. You're ready. The other mourners will be there, Agnes and Margaret, the ones you've worked with before. They'll support you, but you'll set the tone. You'll match the family's grief. You'll be the one they remember. You want to protest, to say you're not ready, to beg her to come with you, but something stops you. That feeling from after your first funeral, pride, purpose, flickers in your chest. I'll try, you say. You'll do. Marjorie corrects you. Not try to. The next morning, you walk to the village by the mill alone. The snow has stopped, leaving the world white and muffled, every sound softened. Your footsteps crunch in the cold, and your breath hangs in front of your face like a veil. The village is smaller than yours, clustered around the mill pond. Even from a distance, you can see that something is wrong. People move slowly, speak in hushed voices. The normal sounds of village life, children playing, animals calling, are absent. You find the house easily. It's the one with the crowd outside, the one with the wreath of winter berries hanging on the door. You push through the crowd and enter. Inside. The family is gathered around the hearth. You spot the widow immediately, young, barely older than you, her belly round with child, her face white and stunned. She's not crying. That's the first thing you notice. She's just sitting there, staring at nothing, while other women hover around her offering food. She doesn't eat, and words she doesn't hear. Agnes and Margaret are already there, sitting in their usual corner. They nod when they see you, and you sit down beside them. She hasn't cried at all. Agnes murmurs quietly. Not since it happened, they say. Just sits there like a stone. You look at the young widow again. Stone is exactly the right word. Her face is frozen, her body rigid. The grief is there. You can feel it filling the room, but it's trapped inside her, unable to escape. This is why they need us. Margaret whispers. She can't cry, so we cry for her. The priest arrives, an older man with kind eyes, who's clearly done this before. He speaks to the widow gently, then moves to prepare for the procession. The coffin is brought in, plain wood, hastily made, still smelling of sawdust. A young man's coffin, built too soon. You stand with the other mourners as the family gathers. You watch the widow, still frozen, still silent, as her husband's body is carried out. You follow in the procession, your voice rising in the familiar moan, but part of you is watching her, waiting for something to break. It doesn't. Not during the walk to the church, not during the mass, not during the walk to the graveyard. She moves like a sleepwalker, like someone who's left her body behind and can't find her way back. At the grave. As the coffin is lowered, you make a decision. You step forward, closer to the family than you usually would. You let your cry rise louder than the others, more desperate, more broken. You're not performing for the crowd now. You're performing for her. You're showing her what her grief could look like if she let it out. And slowly, so slowly you almost miss it, something shifts in her face. Her lips tremble. Her eyes, dry for days, begin to glisten. A single tear escapes, then another, then a sob that seems to tear itself from somewhere deep inside her. She's crying, finally crying. You catch Anis's eye, and she gives you the smallest nod of approval. You've done what you came to do. After the funeral, the widow's mother finds you. She presses extra coins into your hand, more than the usual rate, and grips your arm with surprising strength. "Thank you," she whispers. She needed to see it, needed permission. You gave her that. You walk home through the snow, heavier coins in your pocket and a strange feeling in your chest. Not pride exactly, something else, something that feels almost like meaning. That night, lying on your pallet, you think about the young widow, about her frozen face, her trapped grief, the moment it finally broke free. You think about what Marjorie said weeks ago, that mourners are vessels, carrying what others can't carry alone. Maybe that's true. Maybe you're not just crying for money. Maybe you're doing something that matters. The thought is warm, warmer than any fire. You hold it close as you drift toward sleep, the coins still in your pocket, the widow's face fading into darkness. Tomorrow, there might be another funeral, another family, another grief to carry. But tonight, you rest. Tonight, you're just a person in a small hut, with a purpose in your chest and a quiet satisfaction of work well done. Spring comes slowly, reluctantly, the snow melting into mud that turns every path into a sucking, grasping mess. But with spring comes something else. More funerals. The winter was hard on the old and the weak, and as the ground softens, the graves multiply. You've lost count of how many you've attended. 20, 30. The numbers blur together, each funeral leaving its own small mark on you, like scratches on a wooden table. You've become known. Not famous exactly, this isn't that kind of world, but known. When people in the surrounding villages need mourners, your name comes up. The one with the sad eyes, they say. The one who cries like they mean it. You've developed a reputation, and with that reputation comes something you never expected. Competition. It starts subtly. At a funeral in a village you've worked before, you arrive to find unfamiliar faces among the mourners. 3 women you've never seen, wearing shawls that are too new, too clean, their cries too perfect, too practiced. They watch you with cold eyes as you take your place, and throughout the ceremony, they subtly edge you out, standing in front of you, matching their volume to yours but slightly louder, slightly more dramatic. Afterward, Agnes finds you by the graveyard wall. "Those were Crossley's women," she says quietly, nodding toward the strangers. "From the town across the river, they've been expanding, taking over villages that used to be ours. You've heard of Crossley. Everyone has. He's not a mourner himself. He's something else, something new. A businessman who saw an opportunity in grief and grabbed it. He recruits women from the cities, trains them quickly, and sends them out to underbid the local mourners. His groups work cheaper, faster, and they don't care about territories or traditions or the old ways of doing things. Why would villagers hire them? You ask. They don't know the families. They don't know anyone. Cheaper, Agnes says bitterly, and they offer something we don't. Guarantees. Crossley promises a certain number of mourners for every funeral, no matter what. If someone's sick, he sends another. If someone can't make it, he has backups. Families like that, knowing exactly what they're getting. You think about this as you walk home. Guarantees. Numbers. It's so different from the way you've learned. The way Marjorie taught you, where mourners are part of the community, known quantities, trusted because they're familiar. Crossley's way sounds like selling something, like a merchant with goods to move. Marjorie confirms your suspicions when you tell her about it. He's been growing for years, she says, her voice tired. Started in the cities, where no one knows anyone and families will take whoever shows up. Now he's moving into the countryside, picking off villagers one by one. She stares into the fire. I've lost 3 villagers to him already. Villagers my mother cried in, my grandmother cried in. Now they hire strangers who don't know the names of the dead. What can we do? She's silent for a long moment. Fight or adapt? I'm too old to adapt, so I fight. I remind the families that we're part of them, that our grief is real because we're real, that when you cry for their dead, you're crying for people you might have known, might have traded with, might have passed on the road. That matters to some, and to others. To others, cheap matters more. She shrugs. That's the way of the world. Everything becomes cheaper eventually. A few weeks later, you see Crossley's operation for yourself. A funeral in a village that's always used, local mourners, but when you arrive, you're turned away at the door. We've made other arrangements, the dead man's son says, not meeting your eyes. It's nothing personal. They offered a better price. You stand outside the house, watching as Crossley's women arrive in a group, 6 of them, all in matching black shawls, all walking in perfect unison. They don't speak to anyone. They don't greet the family or ask about the dead. They just take their positions and begin to cry, their voices blending in a harmony so perfect it sounds rehearsed. Because it is rehearsed, you watch the funeral from a distance, hidden behind a hedge. Their cries are technically flawless, every sob in the right place, every wail perfectly timed. But something is missing. You can't name it, but you feel it. The same way you can tell the difference between real bread and the kind that's been stretched with sawdust. Afterward, you approach one of the women as she's leaving. She's younger than you, with a blank face that reminds you of the widow from the hunting accident, before she finally cried. Why do you do this? You ask. Cry for strangers you don't know. She looks at you like you're simple. For the money, same as you, but don't you feel anything? Feel, she almost laughs. I feel my feet hurting. I feel hungry. That's what I feel. The crying is just what we do. Crossley teaches us the techniques. We don't need to feel. She walks away, joining the other women, and you're left standing there with a cold feeling in your stomach. Techniques without feeling, crying without grief. It's like bread without flour, like rain without clouds. It's empty. That night, you tell Marjorie about the woman's words. She listens in silence, then nods slowly. That's the danger, she says. Not that they'll take our work, though they will. Some of it. The real danger is that families will forget the difference, will forget that grief should mean something, that crying should come from somewhere real. She looks at you with those tired eyes. In 50 years, will anyone remember that mourners used to be part of the community? Or will it all be Crossley's way, cheap and empty and forgettable? You don't have an answer. Neither does she. The competition heats up over the following months. Crossley's women appear at more and more funerals, underbidding local mourners, offering packages and guarantees. Some villagers stick with tradition, loyal to the faces they know. Others switch, tempted by the lower prices and the promise of consistency. You find yourself working harder, longer, for less money. The coins in your pouch are fewer, the gaps between funerals longer. You start taking funerals in villages farther away, places where Crossley hasn't reached yet. You walk for hours through rain and mud, arriving exhausted, then have to cry for strangers as if you're fresh and full of feeling. One night, returning from a funeral so far away you barely made it back before dark, you find Marjorie waiting at your door. Her face is grey, older than you've ever seen it. I lost another one today, she says quietly. The village by the mill. They've been mine for 30 years. 30 years of their dead, and today they hired Crossley's women. She pauses. I don't know how much longer I can do this. You want to comfort her, but you don't know how. You're both tired, both worn down by a world that seems to want everything cheaper, faster, easier. Come inside, you say. I have a little food. We'll eat, and then what? You don't know. Neither does she. You sit in your small hut, sharing what little you have, and for the first time since you started this work, you wonder about the future, about whether there's a place for mourners like you, mourners who carry real grief, who cry from the chest instead of the throat, who stay in the shallow water but never forget the deep. Marjorie leaves late, walking slowly back to her own hut. You watch her go, her figure small against the dark sky, and you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Fear. Not fear of hunger or cold or poverty. Fear of something worse, that the work you've learned to love, the purpose you've found, might be disappearing, that the world is changing, and people like you and Marjorie are being left behind. You lie on your pallet, staring at the ceiling, and you think about the young woman from Crossley's group, her blank face, her empty cries, and you wonder if that's all mourning becomes, just technique, just performance, just a job. Then what happens to grief itself? What happens to the families who need to see real tears, real feeling, real permission to break? You don't sleep much that night, and when you finally do, your dreams are full of crying, but it's not your crying, not anyone's crying. It's just sound, empty sound, filling the world until there's nothing else left. Summer arrives like an unwanted guest, bringing heat and dust and the buzzing of flies around anything that doesn't move fast enough. The funerals slow down in summer. People are too busy with planting and growing to die as conveniently as they do in winter. But the slowdown doesn't bring relief, it brings worry. Fewer funerals mean fewer coins, and with Crossley's women undercutting you at every opportunity, every missed funeral feels like a small disaster. You're sitting outside your hut one evening, trying to catch a breeze that isn't there, when a stranger appears on the path. He's clearly not from the village, his clothes are too fine, his shoes too clean, his face too well fed. He stops at your door and looks at you with the expression of a man assessing livestock. "You're the mourner?" he asks, the one they call sad eyes. You nod, wary. "I have a proposition. A funeral, 3 days from now, in the town. A wealthy man, a merchant, has died, and his family wants the best. They've heard of you." He pauses. "They're willing to pay well." "Very well. You should be suspicious." You are suspicious, but the word pay has a power that overrides caution. "How well?" He names a sum that makes your breath catch. "It's more than you've made in the past 3 months combined. Enough to see you through the summer and into autumn without worry. Enough to buy new shoes, new cloth, maybe even a proper blanket." "Why me?" you ask. "There are other mourners. Crossley's women are in the town. They're cheaper, more reliable." The stranger's lip curls slightly. Crossley's women are adequate for ordinary funerals. But this family wants something more. They want feeling. They want grief that seems real. They've been told that you can provide that. He studies you. Can you? You think about it. About the families you've cried for, the grief you've carried. About the young widow who finally broke because you showed her how. About the old man whose funeral you led last month. Crying so hard you forgot where you were. Forgetting until Marjorie's hand on your arm pulled you back. "I can," you say. The stranger nods, satisfied. "Good 3 days. The merchant's house in the town. Anyone can direct you. Come early. There will be other mourners, but you'll be the lead. The family will expect." He searches for the right word. Authenticity. He leaves before you can ask more questions, disappearing down the path the way he came. You sit there in the fading light, the offer hanging in the air, and you wonder what you've just agreed to. Marjorie is skeptical when you tell her. A merchant's funeral. In the town. With that much money. She shakes her head. Something's not right. Town funerals are different. More eyes, more expectations, more performance, and leading a group you don't know, for a family you've never met. It's dangerous. What choice do I have? The money, you know what it would mean. She does know. She's been struggling too. Her old clients dwindling, her body tired from years of carrying grief. She looks at you for a long moment, then sighs. Then you need to be prepared. Town funerals aren't like village funerals. They're bigger, more complicated. There will be more people watching, more judging. The family won't just want grief, they'll want a show, a demonstration that they cared enough to hire the best, that their grief is important enough to be performed well. She stands up, walks to her wooden chest, and pulls out something you've never seen before, a piece of fabric, black but shot through with silver threads that catch the light. "This was my grandmother's," she says, holding it out to you. "She wore it at the biggest funerals, the ones where the families expected something special. Take it, wear it. It will help." You take the fabric, feeling its weight, its age. The silver threads gleam like tears frozen in cloth. What was her secret, you ask, for the big funerals? Marjorie almost smiles. She said the same thing I'm going to tell you. Don't try to be perfect. Perfect is for Crossley's women, rehearsed, empty, forgettable. Be real, be messy, be human. The family will remember that long after they've forgotten any perfectly placed sob. 3 days later, you walk to the town. It's the farthest you've traveled alone. Hours of walking through fields and past villages, until the path widens and the houses grow closer together, and suddenly you're in a place you've only heard stories about. The town is overwhelming, So many people, so many buildings, so much noise, carts clatter over stone streets, merchants shout their wares, children run in packs, dodging between adults. You feel small and exposed. A country person in a place that eats country people for breakfast. But you find the merchant's house. Everyone knows it. A large stone building near the market square, and you make your way inside. The funeral is already being prepared. You've never seen anything like it. The room is filled with flowers, real flowers, brought from somewhere warm. Their colors almost obscene against the black drapes. Candles burn everywhere, their flames reflected in polished wood and metal. And the people are dressed in fabrics you can't name, in colors you've never seen. Their faces smooth and clean and utterly foreign. You're greeted by a woman who must be the merchant's widow. She's younger than you expected, beautiful in a cold way, her eyes red from crying but her composure perfect. "You're the mourner from the village," she says. "Not a question. We've heard about you, about how real your grief sounds. That's what we want today, real grief. My husband deserves real grief." You nod, not trusting your voice in this place. "There are others," she continues, gesturing toward a corner of the room. "They arrived earlier. You'll lead them. Do you understand what that means? You understand what it means in your world, setting the tone, matching the family, guiding the other mourners through the rhythm of grief. But in this world, you're not sure." "I'll do my best," you say. She nods, satisfied, and moves away to greet other guests. You make your way to the corner where the other mourners wait. There are 5 of them, all women, all in black, all with the blank, waiting faces of professionals. They study you as you approach, assessing, judging. One of them, older than the others, steps forward. "You're leading?" she asks. Her voice is neutral, but you sense something beneath it. Resentment, curiosity. "I am," she nods slowly. "We've worked together before. Some of us, we know how to follow. But you need to lead clearly. No hesitation, no uncertainty. If you're unsure, we'll be unsure, and the family will notice." You think about Marjorie's words. Be real, be messy, be human. "I understand," you say. "Just watch me, follow my rhythm. If I go somewhere unexpected, go with me." The older woman's expression shifts slightly. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Bold. "We'll see if it works." The funeral begins. The procession through the town is longer than any you've walked. Crowds line the streets, watching, judging. You lead the mourners, your voice rising in the familiar moan. But everything feels different here. The streets are too wide, the buildings too tall, the watching eyes too many. You feel like an actor on a stage, performing for an audience that expects perfection. But you remember Marjorie's words. You let your grief be real, not perfect, not rehearsed, but real. You think about your mother. You think about the weight in your chest. You think about all the funerals you've attended, all the grief you've carried, all the tears you've shed for strangers who became, somehow, not quite strangers anymore. And something shifts. The street, the crowd, the town, they fade. There's only the grief, only the sound, only the walking and the crying and the being present for this death, this family, this moment. The other mourners follow. You can feel them behind you, matching your rhythm, supporting your sound. Together, you create something that fills the street, that reaches the watching crowd, that makes even the hardened town dwellers wipe their eyes. Dot at the church, at the grave, you lead them through the grief. You show them when to rage and when to crumble, when to wail and when to whisper. You're not performing anymore. You're conducting, guiding, shaping something that feels almost sacred. Afterward, the widow finds you. Her cold composure is gone. She's crying freely now, her face wet, her hands clutching yours. She can't finish. That was exactly what he deserved. What we needed. Thank you. She presses a pouch into your hands, heavier than promised. If that's possible, and walks away, still crying, still holding on to the grief you helped her release. The other mourners gather around you. The older woman who spoke earlier meets your eyes. She shakes her head. "I've never seen anything like it. We follow directions, we perform the cries, but you actually feel it. You don't know how to answer. You think about Marjorie, about the well of grief inside you, about all the deaths you've carried. You think about the widow's frozen face that finally broke, about the old man whose funeral you led last month, about your mother's face, blurry with age but still present. "I don't know," you say honestly. "I just do." She nods slowly. "That's a gift, or a curse. I'm not sure which." You walk home in the dark, the heavy pouch in your pocket, Marjorie's silver-threaded shawl around your shoulders. The town fades behind you, and the familiar countryside welcomes you back. But something has changed. You've seen a different world, a world where grief is a performance, where mourners are judged by crowds, where the work you do is measured in coins and reputation. And you've succeeded in that world. You've proven that your way, the old way, the real way, still has value. As you approach your village, you see a light in Marjorie's window. She's waiting up for you, you realize, waiting to hear how it went. You quicken your pace, eager to tell her, eager to share the news that the old ways aren't dead yet, that there's still a place for mourners who cry from the chest instead of the throat. But as you near her door, you hear something that stops you cold. Crying. Not the organized, performed crying of a funeral. Real crying. Broken. Desperate. Alone. You push open the door and find Marjorie on her stool by the cold hearth, her face in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. She looks up when you enter, and her eyes, those old, tired eyes that have seen everything, are red and swollen and utterly lost. What is it? You ask, rushing to her side. What's happened? She reaches out and grips your arm with surprising strength. My daughter, she whispers. The one I told you about, the one who didn't survive birth. I dreamt of her tonight. For the first time in years, I dreamt of her face. She sobs again, a sound that tears at something in your chest. I've carried so much grief for so many strangers, but I never cried for her, never let myself cry for my own daughter. You kneel beside her, not knowing what to say, what to do. She's the one who taught you everything. How to hold grief, how to carry it, how to stay in the shallow water. And now she's drowning. You put your arms around her, and you hold her while she cries. No performance, no technique, no shallow water. Just two people in a dark hut, holding each other against the weight of all the tears that never fell. Marjorie cries for a long time. You hold her, feeling the sobs rack her thin body, feeling years of stored grief finally breaking through the dam she'd built so carefully. The fire died hours ago, but neither of you moves to relight it. The darkness feels right somehow, a blanket, a hiding place, a womb where old wounds can finally be seen. When she finally quiets, she pulls back and looks at you with swollen eyes. In the dim light from the single candle still flickering on her hearth, she looks ancient, broken, but also, strangely, lighter, like someone who's put down a burden they didn't know they were carrying. I'm sorry, she whispers. You shouldn't have to see this. You taught me that grief needs witnesses. You say quietly, I'm witnessing. She almost smiles, a ghost of expression that flickers and fades. You learned well. Too well, maybe. She straightens on her stool, wipes her face with her sleeve. Tell me about the funeral. Tell me something good. So you tell her about the town, the crowds, the other mourners, about leading them through the streets, about the widow's cold face melting into real tears, about the pouch of coins heavy in your pocket. As you talk, she listens, nods, asks questions, the professional mourner in her reawakening, interested in the details, the techniques, the responses. When you finish, she's quiet for a long moment. You've surpassed me, she says finally. I never led a town funeral, never wore my grandmother's shawl for strangers in a place like that. You've done something I couldn't. That's not true. You taught me everything. I taught you techniques. The feeling that was always yours, the well of grief you draw from, that's yours alone. She reaches out and touches your hand. You're ready for whatever comes next. The words hang in the air between you. Whatever comes next. Neither of you says what you're both thinking, that for Marjorie, there might not be much next left, that the years of carrying grief, her own and everyone else's, have worn her thin. You stay with her until dawn, not sleeping, just sitting together in the dark. When the first light touches the horizon, you help her to her pallet, cover her with her blanket, and leave her to rest. The days that follow are strange. You continue to work funerals, but something has shifted. Word of the town funeral has spread, and now families from farther away send for you. You walk to villages you've never seen, cry for strangers whose names you learn only at the grave. The coins accumulate in your pouch, enough that you start thinking about things you never dared to imagine. A better hut, warmer clothes, maybe even a goat for milk and cheese. But with the success comes new attention. Crossley's women start appearing at funerals where you're working, not competing, exactly, but watching. Studying, you catch them at the edges of crowds, their blank faces turned toward you, observing your techniques, your rhythms, your ways of moving through grief. It makes your skin crawl, but there's nothing you can do about it. One afternoon, returning from a funeral in a village so far away your feet ache, you find a stranger waiting outside your hut. He's dressed like the messenger who came before: fine clothes, clean shoes, well-fed face, but older, sharper, with eyes that miss nothing. "You're the mourner," he says. "Not a question. I am. My employer wants to meet you." Crossly, your heart stops, then starts again, faster. "Why?" The stranger smiles, a thin, humorless expression. He doesn't share his reasons with me. "I'm just the messenger. Tomorrow, at the inn in the town, he'll pay for your time." He turns to leave, then pauses. He doesn't like to be kept waiting. He walks away before you can respond, leaving you standing there with 1,000 questions and no answers. You go to Marjorie that night. She's stronger now, more herself, though something in her eyes has changed. A new softness, a new acceptance of things she used to fight. "Crossley wants to meet you," she repeats slowly. "That's interesting, dangerous, probably, but also an opportunity." She stares into her fire, always burning now, even in summer, as if she needs the warmth more than ever. He doesn't meet with just anyone. If he wants to see you, it means he sees you as a threat, or as a potential asset. Which one should I be? She looks at you with those tired, knowing eyes. That depends on what you want. If you want to fight him, be a threat. If you want to survive, be an asset. There's no shame in survival. You think about this, about the years of work ahead, about Crossley's organization spreading like roots through the soil, taking over village after village, about the blank-faced women with their perfect techniques and empty grief. "I don't know what I want," you admit, then go to the meeting. Listen, learn. You don't have to decide anything today. She pauses. "But take this." She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a small knife, old, but sharp, its blade worn thin from years of use, just in case. You take the knife, feeling its weight, its history. "Was this your mother's?" "Her mother's, the one who taught her. It's been in my family for generations." She meets your eyes. "Now it's yours. Whatever happens tomorrow, you should have it." You want to protest, to say you don't need it, to tell her to keep it, but something in her expression stops you. This is a gift, a blessing, a passing of something that can't be named. You tuck the knife into your pocket and sit with her until late, not talking much, just being together in the warm firelight. When you finally leave, you hug her, something you've never done before, and she holds you tight for just a moment, then pushes you away. "Go rest. Tomorrow is important." The next day, you walk to the town. The path is familiar now. You've made this journey several times since the merchant's funeral, but everything feels different, heavier. The sky is gray, threatening rain, and the fields you pass seem darker than usual. The crops less green. The inn is near the market square, a large building with rooms upstairs and a common room below. You push open the door and step inside. The common room is nearly empty, unusual for this time of day, but in the corner, at a table by the window, sits a man you know must be Crossley. He's not what you expected, not a slick merchant type, not a cold businessman. He's older, maybe 60, with a face that might have been kind once but has been worn smooth by something, grief, maybe, or its absence. He wears simple clothes, dark and plain, and when he looks up at you, his eyes are the most striking thing about him. They're empty, completely, utterly empty, like windows into a room with no furniture, no fire, no life. "Please," he says, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Sit, eat. The food here is passable." You sit, not touching the bread and cheese on the table. He watches you with those empty eyes, and for a long moment, neither of you speaks. "I've heard about you," he says finally. "The mourner with the sad eyes, the one who makes people feel something real." He pauses. "That's rare, valuable. Most mourners, mine included, can only perform. You can actually feel. I want to know how." You think about lying, about protecting your secrets, but something in those empty eyes makes you think he'd see through any lie. "I had a good teacher," you say, "and I've had a lot of practice." He nods slowly. "Marjorie, I know of her. Her family has been mourning in this region for generations. Good mourners, real mourners." He leans forward slightly. "But her kind is dying out. The world is changing. Families want consistency, reliability, guarantees. They don't want to wonder if a mourner will show up, or if she'll be too sick to cry. They want certainty. and you provide certainty. I provide mourners, trained, reliable, always available. My women may not feel, but they perform so well that most families can't tell the difference. He studies you. You can tell the difference. I know you can. That's why I wanted to meet you. Here it comes. The offer. You braced yourself. I want you to work for me. Crossley says, not as one of my women. You're too valuable for that. As a trainer, you'd teach my mourners how to feel, how to access real emotion, real grief. You'd make them better. He names a sum that makes your head spin more than you've ever imagined. More than enough to live comfortably for years. You sit there, the offer hanging in the air, and you think about Marjorie, about her worn face, her tired eyes, her grief for a daughter she never let herself mourn, about the knife in your pocket, passed down through generations of real mourners. Why do you do this? You ask. Why not just let local mourners work the way they always have? For the first time, something flickers in Crossley's empty eyes, something almost human. Because when I was young, he says quietly, my wife died, in childbirth, the baby too, both gone in one night. He pauses. There were no mourners at her funeral, no one to cry for her, to show me how to grieve, to carry any of the weight. I sat there alone, not crying, not knowing how, while everyone watched and judged. Another pause, longer this time. I started this so no one would ever have to be alone in their grief, so every family, no matter how poor or isolated, could have mourners, guaranteed. You stare at him, seeing for the first time the grief beneath the emptiness, the wound that never healed, that maybe never even started to heal. My mourners may not feel, he continues, but they're there, they show up, they perform, and for some families, that's enough. For some, it's everything. You sit in silence, the offer still on the table, the weight of his story settling over you like a shroud. I can't answer now, you say finally. I need to think. He nods. Take a week, then come back or don't. Either way, the offer stands. He stands, drops a coin on the table for the food you didn't eat, and walks out without looking back. You sit there for a long time, alone in the empty inn, staring at the bread and cheese you can't bring yourself to touch, thinking about Crossley's empty eyes and the grief behind them, thinking about Marjorie's tears for her daughter, thinking about your mother's face, blurry but present, always present. Thinking about what it means to carry grief, real grief, performed grief, borrowed grief, and whether there's a right way and a wrong way, or just different ways, different needs, different wounds. You walk home in the rain, not feeling the wet, not feeling much of anything except the weight of a decision you don't know how to make. The rain doesn't stop for 3 days. It falls in sheets, in curtains, in endless grey streams that turn the world into mud and misery. You stay in your hut, listening to it drum against the roof, watching the drips find their way through the thatch and form puddles on your dirt floor. The coins from the town funeral keep you fed, keep you dry enough, but they can't keep the thoughts from circling in your head. Crossley's offer, Crossley's eyes, Crossley's dead wife and unborn child. You haven't told Marjorie about the meeting. You're not sure why. Fear, maybe, that she'd see it as betrayal, or that she'd tell you to take it, and you're not ready to hear that, or that she'd tell you to refuse, and you're not ready to hear that either. On the 4th day, the rain stops. The sun comes out, weak and watery, and you step outside for the first time in what feels like forever. The village is emerging from its wet captivity, children splashing in puddles, women hanging sodden laundry to dry, men inspecting damaged roofs. Normal life, returning after the storm. But something else is returning too. You see it in the way people move, in the worried glances between neighbors, in the hushed conversations that stop when you approach. Something is wrong. You find out what at Marjorie's hut. She's sitting by her fire, always the fire now, and her face when you enter tells you everything you need to know before she speaks. Plague, she says quietly. In the town, 3 deaths already, more sick. The word hits you like a physical blow. Plague, the thing everyone fears, the thing that sweeps through villages and leaves nothing but corpses and orphans in its wake. How do you know? Traders came through this morning on their way south, said the town is shutting its gates, trying to contain it. But it's too late. People were already leaving, spreading it wherever they go. She looks at you with those tired eyes. It'll reach us. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. You sit down heavily on the stool across from her. The world, which just moments ago seemed almost normal, now feels fragile. dangerous, ready to break. What do? What we always do. We wait, we pray, and when it comes, we mourn. She pauses. There will be more funerals than anyone can count, more grief than anyone can carry. Crossley's women won't be enough. The local mourners won't be enough. No one will be enough. You think about Crossley's offer, the guaranteed mourners, the reliable performances. In a plague, reliability matters, consistency matters, but so does feeling, so does real grief, real tears, real permission to break. I have to tell you something, you say, and you do. You tell her about the meeting, about the offer, about Crossley's story, about the empty eyes and the buried grief and the choice you don't know how to make. She listens without interrupting, her face unreadable. When you finish, she's quiet for a long moment. He's not wrong, she says finally, about people needing mourners, about consistency mattering. In a plague, families won't care where the tears come from. They'll just need tears, need someone to stand at the grave and cry while they're too sick or too scared or too exhausted to do it themselves. You think I should take the offer? I think you should do what you need to survive, what we all need to survive. She looks into the fire. I won't be here much longer, not through a plague. My body's too old, too worn. But you could keep going. You could mourn for years, decades. You could carry grief for more people than I ever did. The words hit you harder than you expected. Don't say that. It's true, and you know it. She reaches out and takes your hand. Whatever you decide about Crossley, decide it for yourself. Not for me, not for the old ways, not for anyone else. For you. You sit there, holding her hand, feeling the bones beneath the papery skin. This woman, who taught you everything, how to cry, how to carry grief, how to stay in the shallow water. This woman who held generations of mourning in her blood, in her bones, in her tired, tired eyes. I don't want you to die, you whisper. She almost smiles. No one does, but we all do. That's the one thing all my years of mourning have taught me. Everyone dies. The only question is whether anyone cries when they do. That night, you dream of crying. But it's not your crying, it's everyone's. Thousands of voices, thousands of sobs, filling the world until there's nothing else. And in the middle of it all, you see your mother's face, clear for the first time in years, and she's smiling. You wake to shouting. The village is in chaos. People running, people screaming, people clutching children and belongings and running for the fields, the woods, anywhere away from the center. You pull on your clothes and run outside, grabbing the first person you see. What happened? Plague. The woman gasps, her face white with terror. In the next village, half of them are dead already. They say it's the worst anyone's seen, kills in days, sometimes hours. They say there's no cure, no escape, nothing. She pulls away and keeps running. You stand there in the chaos, watching your world dissolve into panic, and you think about what Marjorie said. More funerals than anyone can count, more grief than anyone can carry. You run to Marjorie's hut. She's sitting by her fire, calm in the midst of the storm. When you burst in, she looks up and nods, as if she's been expecting you. It's here, she says quietly. Or close enough. The next village, that's where my sister lives. My sister and her family. You hadn't known she had a sister. In all these months, she never mentioned her. I have to go, you say. I have to help. Help how? There's no help for plague. Only waiting, only mourning. I don't know, but I can't just stay here. She studies you for a long moment. Then she stands, slowly, painfully, and walks to her wooden chest. She pulls out something you've never seen, a small cloth bundle, tied with string. This was my mother's, she says, handing it to you. Her mourning bundle, things she collected over the years, herbs for scent, a smooth stone to hold, a lock of hair from each person she mourned. She said it helped her carry the weight. She presses it into your hands. Take it. You'll need it. You want to refuse, to tell her to keep it, but something in her eyes stops you. This is another gift, another passing. I'll come back, you say. When this is over, I'll come back. She nods, but you can see in her eyes that she doesn't believe it. Maybe you don't either. You run. The path to the next village is familiar. You've walked it dozens of times for funerals, but today it feels different. Wrong. The fields are empty. The farmhouse is shuttered. No one works. No one walks. No one lives. It's as if the world has already died. The village appears ahead, and you stop. You've seen death before. You've attended dozens of funerals, looked into dozens of graves, but you've never seen anything like this. Bodies everywhere, in doorways, in the street, piled against walls like garbage. The stench hits you even from a distance, sweet and rotten and terrible. Flies buzz in clouds so thick they look like smoke. And the silence is the worst part. No crying, no mourning, no one left to grieve. You walk through the village, your feet moving without your permission, your eyes taking in horrors your mind can't process. A mother and child, curled together in a doorway, an old man, fallen mid-step, his hand still reaching for something, a baby, alone in a cradle, silent and still, and in the center of the village, near the well, you find Marjorie's sister. You know it's her because of the resemblance, the same bones, the same shape of face. She's sitting on the ground, her back against the well, a dead child in her lap. She's not crying, she's just sitting there, staring at nothing, while the flies crawl across her face and she doesn't even blink. You approach slowly, carefully, not sure if she's alive or dead. When you're close enough to touch, she moves, just her eyes, shifting to look at you. You came, she whispers. Her voice is cracked, broken, barely there. I came. They're all dead. My husband, my children, my grandchildren, everyone. She looks down at the child in her lap. This is the last one. She died this morning. I've been sitting here since, waiting for someone to come, waiting for someone to tell me what to do. You kneel beside her. You don't know what to say. All your training, all your practice, all your experience, nothing prepared you for this. I don't know what to do either. You admit. She nods slowly. Then just sit with me, just for a little while. I don't want to be alone. You sit. The sun moves across the sky. The flies buzz. The child in her lap grows colder, stiffer. And you sit, not crying, not speaking, just being present while the world ends around you. After a long time she speaks again. Are you a mourner? You look like one. The way you hold yourself. I am. Will you cry for them? For my family? I can't. I've tried, but nothing comes. Will you cry for them? You look at the bodies scattered around you, at the mother and child in the doorway, at the old man in the street, at the baby in the cradle, at the child in her lap. Yes, you say, I'll cry for them. And you do. You cry for hours, it seems. You cry for each one you can see, and for the ones you can't. You cry for Marjorie's sister, still sitting there, still not crying herself. You cry for Marjorie, back in her hut, waiting for news she probably already knows. You cry for yourself, for the world you've lost, for the world that's dying. You use every technique Marjorie taught you. You stay in the shallow water. You let the grief come through you without drowning in it. You cry until your voice is gone, until your eyes are raw, until there's nothing left. And when you're done, Marjorie's sister reaches out and touches your hand. Thank you, she whispers. Now I can go. She closes her eyes. Her breathing slows. And as the sun sets over the dead village, she dies too, there against the well, her child still in her lap. You sit with her until dark. Then you stand, on legs that barely hold you, and you walk back toward your village, back toward Marjorie, back toward whatever's left of the world you knew. But you know, even as you walk, that nothing will ever be the same. The plague has come, and when it leaves, it will take everything with it. The walk back to your village takes hours that feel like years. Every step is heavy, every breath an effort. Your body moves automatically while your mind stays trapped in that village, in the bodies, the silence, the flies, the woman dying against the well with her dead child in her lap. You carry it all with you, a weight so heavy you can barely stand. The village is quiet when you return, too quiet. No children playing, no women at the well, no sounds of normal life. The doors are shut, the windows shuttered. It looks like a village already dead. You go to Marjorie's hut first. The door is closed, but you hear sounds inside, movement, a low voice. You push open the door and step in. Marjorie is on her pallet, wrapped in blankets despite the warmth. Her face is grey, her eyes sunken, her breathing shallow and rapid. Beside her sits a woman you don't recognize, one of the neighbors, maybe, here to help. She's been asking for you, the woman says quietly, all day, wouldn't rest until I promised to watch for you. You cross to Marjorie's side and kneel. Her eyes open slowly, focus on your face, and something flickers in them. Relief, maybe, or recognition. You came back, she whispers. I came back. The village, my sister. You shake your head. You can't say the words. You don't need to. She closes her eyes. A tear escapes. The first you've seen her cry since that night when she finally grieved her daughter. It tracks down her grey cheek and disappears into the blanket. I knew, she whispers. I felt it. When she died, like something breaking inside me. She opens her eyes again. Tell me, please, I need to know. So you tell her everything. The bodies in the streets, the mother and child, the old man, the baby, her sister by the well, the dead child in her lap, the hours of sitting, the final words, the crying. You're crying for all of them. Marjorie listens, without interrupting, without moving. When you finish, she's quiet for a long time. You cried for them, she says finally. For all of them. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. She reaches out and grips your hand with surprising strength. You're a mourner, a real mourner, the best I've ever taught. You want to say something, but your throat closes. You just hold her hand and try not to cry. I'm dying, she says quietly. You know that, right? The plague, I've seen it before. I know the signs. I know. I'm not afraid. I've been dying for years, really, ever since my daughter. I just didn't notice. She almost smiles. But I'm glad you're here. I didn't want to die alone. You're not alone. I know. She closes her eyes. Will you do something for me? After any of you mourn me, cry for me. Not like you cry for strangers. Really mourn me. The way I never mourned my daughter. The way no one mourned your mother. Real mourning. For someone you loved. She opens her eyes and looks at you. Promise me. You promise. She dies 3 hours later. Just before dawn. It's quiet. A last breath. A long exhale. And then nothing. You're holding her hand when it happens. Watching her face relax into something almost peaceful. The neighbor woman crosses herself and murmurs a prayer. You just sit there, still holding Marjorie's hand. Feeling the warmth slowly fade from her fingers. You stay until the sun rises. Then you stand, gently release her hand, and walk outside to face a world that suddenly feels much emptier. The days that follow are a blur of death. The plague sweeps through the village like fire through dry grass, taking young and old, strong and weak, good and bad. You lose count of the bodies after the first dozen. You lose track of time after the first week. Every day brings new funerals, new grief, new families broken and burned, and through it all, you mourn. Not as a paid mourner. There's no payment now, no coins exchanged for tears. Everyone is too sick, too scared, too overwhelmed to think about payment. You mourn because someone has to, because the dead deserve tears, because the living need to see that grief is possible, that life goes on, that someone still cares enough to cry. You cry for children and grandparents, for mothers and fathers, for whole families wiped out in days. You cry at graves so numerous you stop remembering which is which. You cry until your voice is gone, until your eyes are raw, until you think you have nothing left, and then you find more. One evening, returning from yet another burial, you find a figure waiting outside your hut. It takes you a moment to recognize her, the young woman from Crossley's group, the one who told you she didn't feel anything. She looks different now. Her blank face is cracked, her eyes red and swollen, her clothes disheveled and dirty. I need your help, she says. Her voice is raw, broken. Please. You lead her inside, give her water, wait for her to speak. When she does, the words come out in a rush. Crossley's dead. The plague took him 3 days ago. His organization, it's gone. Everyone scattered, ran back to their families, tried to survive. I don't have a family. I don't have anywhere to go. She looks at you with desperate eyes. I don't know how to do this. The real crying. I only know the techniques, the performance. But now I need to cry for real, and I don't know how. You look at her, this woman who once seemed like the enemy, who represented everything wrong with the new way of mourning. Now she's just another survivor, another person drowning in grief she can't express. Who did you lose? You asked quietly. Everyone. My mother, my father, my little brother. All in 1 week. I wasn't there. I was working, performing for strangers, and when I got back, they were already buried. Mass graves. No markers. No mourners. Her voice breaks. I didn't even get to cry for them. You think about Marjorie, about her daughter she never mourned, about your mother, buried while you sat outside the door, about all the grief that never found its voice. Sit down, you say. I'll teach you. You spend the night teaching her what Marjorie taught you. How to find the water in the well. How to let grief rise without drowning in it. How to cry from the chest, not the throat. She's a slow learner at first, too many years of performing without feeling, but as the night goes on, something shifts. A crack appears in her carefully constructed blanket, and then another, and then she's crying, really crying, for the first time in years, and you hold her while she does, the way Marjorie held you when you needed it. When dawn comes, she's exhausted but different, lighter, like someone who's finally put down a weight they didn't know they were carrying. "Thank you," she whispers. I didn't know it could feel like this." "Like what?" Like it matters. Like the crying means something." She wipes her face. "All those years, performing for strangers, I thought I was helping, but I was just making noise. Empty noise." She looks at you. "This is different. This is real." You nod. "That's what Marjorie taught me. That's what she'd want me to teach others." "Marjorie, my teacher, she died last week. From the plague." The young woman is quiet for a moment. Then she says, "I'm sorry. Will you mourn her properly?" "I promised I would. Can I help? I don't know how, but I want to learn. I want to be a real mourner, not like before. Like you, like her." You look at this woman who was once your competitor, your enemy, your opposite. Now she's just another student, another person trying to find their way through grief. "Stay," you say. "Help me with the funerals. Learn as you go." "It's not the way I learned. Marjorie had years to teach me, and we don't have years, but it's something." She nods, gratitude flooding her tired face. I'll stay. I'll learn. I'll try to be worthy of it." You almost smile. That's all any of us can do. The next weeks are harder than anything you've experienced. The plague continues its rampage, taking more and more. You and the young woman, her name is Alice. You learn work from dawn to dark, mourning, burying, comforting. You teach her what Marjorie taught you, and she learns quickly. Her natural talent for performance, transforming into something deeper, something real. Together, you create a new kind of mourning, not the old way, not the new way, something in between, something that combines technique with feeling, performance with authenticity, something that might survive whatever comes next. And through it all, you carry Marjorie with you, her voice in your head, her lessons in your heart, her grief finally given voice in your tears. You haven't had time to properly mourn her yet. There's too much death, too much work, but you know that when the time comes, you'll keep your promise. You'll mourn her the way she deserved, the way she taught you to mourn. One evening, as the plague finally begins to recede, you and Alice sit outside your hut, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. For the first time in weeks, there were no funerals today. For the first time in weeks, you have a moment to rest. "What happens now?" Alice asks quietly. "When it's over, you think about this, about all the dead, all the graves, all the grief still waiting to be processed, about Crossley's empty eyes and Marjorie's tired ones, about your mother's face, still blurry but somehow closer now, like she's been waiting for you all along. We keep going," you say. "We mourn the ones we lost. We help others mourn theirs. We carry what we can, and we teach others to carry what we can't." And after that, you look at the sunset, at the sky that's seen so much death, and will see so much more. You think about Marjorie's shawl, folded carefully in your hut, about her mother's mourning bundle, full of herbs and hair and memory, about the knife in your pocket, passed down through generations. After that, you say, we remember Marjorie, and all the mourners who came before her. We remember that grief matters, that tears matter, that being present for someone in their darkest moment matters, and we teach that to anyone who'll learn." Alice is quiet for a long moment. Then she says, "I think I'd like that, to learn, to remember, to be part of something that matters." You nod. The sun dips below the horizon, and the first stars appear overhead. Somewhere in the village, a baby cries, a new life, a new beginning, a new chance. And somewhere in your chest, the weight of all the grief you've carried settles into place. Not lighter, never lighter, but bearable, shareable, the way Marjorie taught you. Tomorrow, there will be more work, more funerals, more grief to carry. But tonight, you rest. Tonight, you remember. Tonight, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The plague passes, as plagues eventually do, leaving behind a world that's smaller and quieter and full of ghosts. You walk through the village and see empty houses, silent workshops, fields with no one to tend them. Half the population gone, they say, maybe more. No one's counting anymore. There are too many dead to count, but the living go on. They rebuild, replant, remake their lives from the ruins, and they mourn. You and Alice work constantly. There are so many funerals, so many families who need tears they can't produce themselves. You train other survivors, a few here, a few there, people who saw what you did during the plague and want to learn. Some have the gift, the capacity to feel and channel grief. Others don't, and you send them away gently, finding them other ways to help. Within a year, you've built something new, a network of mourners, trained in the old ways but adapted to the new world. They work in villages across the region, carrying grief, teaching others, keeping the tradition alive. You don't charge the way Crossley did, no guarantees, no packages, no contracts. You ask only what families can give, and you trust that the work will continue. But not everyone is happy with this new arrangement. It starts with whispers, rumors you hear at funerals, in markets, from travelers passing through, whispers about the church, about new rules, about changes coming. You don't pay much attention at first. The church has always had opinions about mourners, and those opinions have never stopped families from hiring you. Then the priest arrives. He's young, younger than you expected, with the smooth face of someone who's never really suffered. He comes to your hut one evening, accompanied by 2 older men from the village who look uncomfortable but determined. You're the one they call the mourner, he says. Not a question, I am. I've heard about you, about your work. He says the word like it tastes bad. Crying for money, performing grief for coin. It's not right. You've heard this before. You keep your voice calm. I help families who can't cry for themselves. I carry grief they can't carry alone. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is that grief belongs to God. Tears should be prayer, not performance. When you cry for money, you cheapen sorrow. You turn sacred mourning into a spectacle. He steps closer, his eyes hard. The bishop has issued a decree. Paid mourning is to cease. Those who continue will face penance and worse. Your heart sinks, but you don't show it. And who will cry for the families who can't cry for themselves? Who will help them through their grief? They have the church. They have prayer. They have community. He gestures vaguely. They don't need professionals profiting from their pain. You think about all the families you've helped. The frozen widow who finally broke, the woman by the well with her dead child, the hundreds of others who couldn't have made it through without someone to show them how to grieve. You think about Marjorie, about her mother, about generations of mourners stretching back into history. The church has tried this before. You say quietly, it didn't work then either. His face tightens. This time is different. The bishop is serious. He's already sent inspectors to other regions. Those who refuse to comply will be excommunicated. He pauses, letting the word hang in the air. Do you understand what that means? You understand. Excommunication, cut off from the church, from the community, from salvation itself. In a world where everyone believes, where the church controls everything from birth to death, to whatever comes after, excommunication is a kind of living death. I understand, you say. He nods, satisfied. Good. Then you'll cease your work immediately. No more paid mourning. No more training others. Find honest work, and the church will welcome you back. He turns to leave, then pauses. I'll be checking. We all will. He leaves, followed by the uncomfortable villagers. You stand in your doorway, watching them go, and you feel something you haven't felt in years. Fear. Fear, not fear of punishment or poverty or even excommunication. Fear of losing what you've built. Fear of letting Marjorie down. Fear of watching the tradition die after everything you've done to keep it alive. Alice finds you there, still standing in the doorway, staring at nothing. I heard, she says quietly. Everyone's heard. The whole village is talking. You nod, not trusting your voice. What do we do? You think about this, about the families who still need you, about the mourners you've trained, scattered across the region, about the church's power and the bishop's decree and the inspectors who will come. We keep going, you say finally, but carefully, quietly. We don't advertise. We don't talk about what we do. When families need us, they'll find us. They always have. And if the inspectors find out, then we deal with it. You turn to look at her. But I'm not stopping. I can't. Marjorie didn't teach me all those years, so I could quit at the first sign of trouble. Alice nods slowly. I'm with you. Whatever happens, the next months are tense. You work in secret, meeting families at night, crying in hidden places, accepting payment in whispers and shadows. The mourners you trained do the same in their villages, passing messages through trusted contacts. never gathering in groups large enough to attract attention. But the church's inspectors are thorough. One by one, they find your people. One by one, they issue warnings, impose penances, threaten excommunication. Some of your mourners quit, too scared to continue. Others keep going, driven by the same need that drives you, the knowledge that families still need them, still send for them, still thank them with tears and coins and desperate gratitude. 6 months after the priest's visit, they come for you. It's dawn, the worst possible time. You're barely awake when the door bursts open and 3 men push in, the young priest and 2 others. Larger, meaner, clearly hired for intimidation. They drag you outside before you can even pull on your shoes, and there, in the village square, in front of everyone you know, they pronounce judgment. You have been found guilty of continuing your forbidden work, the priest announces, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. Despite clear warnings, despite the church's decree, you have persisted in profiting from grief. For this, you are hereby excommunicated, cut off from the sacraments, cut off from the community of believers, cut off from God. The words hit like stones. You hear gasps from the crowd, see faces you know turning away, unable to meet your eyes. Excommunication, the worst punishment the church can give. But, the priest continues, the church is merciful. If you confess your sin, perform public penance, and swear never to mourn for money again, you may be restored. You stand there in your bare feet, in your thin nightclothes, with everyone watching. The weight of their eyes is almost physical. All you have to do is say yes, agree to their terms, promise to stop, and you'll be welcomed back, forgiven, saved. You think about Marjorie, about her tired eyes and her final request, about the mourners you've trained, the families you've helped, the grief you've carried, about the tradition that stretches back generations, passed from mother to daughter, teacher to student, heart to heart. No, you say. The word hangs in the air like smoke. The priest's face reddens. No, I won't stop. I can't. Families need us. Grief needs us. The church can't provide what we provide. It never could. You look at the crowd, at the faces of people you've known your whole life. You know this. Some of you have hired me. Some of you have thanked me. Some of you have cried with me. Tell him that what I do matters. Silence. No one speaks. No one meets your eyes. The priest smiles, a thin, cruel expression. You see, no one defends you. No one wants you here. You're alone. And then, from the edge of the crowd, a voice. I'll defend her. Alice pushes through the crowd, her face pale but determined. She stands beside you, facing the priest, her chin lifted. She taught me everything. She saved my life during the plague. She showed me how to grieve, how to feel, how to be human again. If she's excommunicated, so am I. Another voice, from the other side of the crowd. An older woman, someone you mourned 4 years ago, when her husband died. And me. She cried for my Thomas when I couldn't. I'll never forget that. Another voice. Another. Soon there are a dozen people standing with you. Then 2 dozen. Then more. People you've helped. People whose grief you've carried. People who remember what you did for them when they had nothing. The priest's face contorts with fury. This changes nothing. The church's decree stands. These people are misguided, led astray by your wickedness. They'll see the truth eventually. He turns and strides away, his hired men following. The crowd slowly disperses, but those who stood with you remain. Gathered around you in the cold morning light, Alice takes your hand. What now? You look at these people, your community, your family, your reason for everything. You think about Marjorie, about her daughter, about all the grief you've carried, and all the grief still waiting to be carried. Now we keep going, you say, carefully, quietly, together. And you do. For years, you keep going. The church never stops trying to stop you, but they can't stop the need. Families still send for you in secret. Mourners still train in hidden places. The tradition survives, underground but alive. And every time you cry for someone, every time you carry their grief, you think of Marjorie. You think of her tired eyes and her final words. You think of all the mourners who came before, and all who will come after. You're not alone. You never were. Years pass. They pass like water through your fingers. You can feel them moving, but you can't hold on to them. Your hair grays. Your joints ache after long funerals. Your eyes, those sad eyes that started all this, grow tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep. But you keep going. Through good times and bad. through seasons of death and seasons of life, through the church's ongoing persecution and the family's ongoing need. You keep going because stopping would mean letting Marjorie down, would mean letting all of them down, the mourners you've trained, the families you've helped, the tradition you've carried. Alice stays with you through it all. She's not a student anymore. She's a partner, a friend, the closest thing to family you have. Together, you've built something remarkable, a network of mourners that stretches across the region, passing grief from village to village, carrying what others can't carry alone. But the world is changing. You feel it in ways you can't quite name. The church's campaign against paid mourning has taken its toll. Each year, fewer young people want to learn. Each year, more villagers turn to new ways of mourning, quieter ways, private ways, ways that don't involve professional weepers. The tradition is dying, and you're watching it happen. One evening, sitting by your fire with Alice, you try to put words to it. Do you remember when we started? You ask. How many funerals there were? How many mourners? She nods slowly. Dozens, at least now. How many are left? She's quiet for a moment, counting 12, maybe 13, and half of them are old, older than us. You stare into the fire, watching the flames dance and flicker. Marjorie's family mourned for generations, her mother, her grandmother, back and back into history, and now it ends. With us. Does it have to end? You think about this, about all the young people who've refused to learn, who've chosen other paths, other lives, about the church's success in making paid mourning seem shameful, pagan, wrong, about a world that's slowly forgetting that grief needs witnesses, that tears need permission, that some weights are too heavy to carry alone. I don't know, you admit. Maybe it's just time. Maybe everything ends eventually. Alice reaches out and takes your hand. Then we make sure it ends well. We make sure the last mourners are the best mourners. We make sure people remember, not the tradition, maybe, but what it stood for. That grief matters. That being present matters. That no one should have to mourn alone. You squeeze her hand. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. You sit together in comfortable silence, watching the fire, thinking about all the years, all the funerals, all the grief. You think about faces you'll never forget, the frozen widow, the woman by the well, Marjorie's sister with her dead child. You think about Marjorie herself, her tired eyes, her final request. You think about your mother, buried while you sat outside the door, her face forever blurry, but forever present. I never properly mourned her. You say quietly, Marjorie, I promised I would, but there was always another funeral, another family, another crisis. I never took the time. Alice looks at you. Maybe it's time now. You nod slowly. Maybe it is. The next day, you walk to Marjorie's grave. It's in the village graveyard, marked by a simple wooden cross that's weathered grey over the years. You haven't visited as often as you should. The work always called, always demanded. But today, there's no work. Today, there's only this. You kneel beside the grave, feeling the cold damp seeping through your clothes. You close your eyes and try to bring her face to mind, the tired eyes, the weathered skin, the rare smiles. It comes easily, as if she's been waiting for you to look, and then you cry. Not the performed crying of funerals, not the controlled weeping of a professional mourner. Real crying, messy crying, the kind of crying you haven't done since you were a child, since your mother died, since you sat outside that door and didn't know how to let the grief out. You cry for Marjorie, for her wisdom, her patience, her years of carrying grief. You cry for her daughter, never mourned, finally given tears through you. You cry for her mother and grandmother, and all the mourners who came before, their names forgotten but their work living on. You cry for yourself, for the weight you've carried, for the life you've lived, for the loneliness that comes with being the last of something. You cry until there's nothing left, until your eyes are dry and your throat is raw and your body is empty. And when you're done, you sit there in the silence, feeling lighter than you have in years. Thank you, you whisper to the grave, for everything. A hand touches your shoulder. You look up to find Alice standing there, her own eyes wet. I thought you might need company, she says quietly. You nod, and she helps you stand. Together, you walk back toward the village, leaving Marjorie's grave behind, but carrying her with you in a new way. Lighter now, freer, finally mourned. That night, you dream of your mother. For the first time in decades, she's clear, not blurry, not faded, not distant. She's standing in a field of wheat, the sun behind her, her face exactly as you remember it from when you were small. She's smiling, and behind her, stretching into the distance, are other figures, Marjorie, and Marjorie's mother, and her mother before her, and on, a line of mourners reaching back into history. They're all watching you, not judging, just watching, acknowledging, welcoming. You wake with tears on your face, but for once, they don't feel heavy. They feel like rain after drought. They feel like coming home. The next months are quiet. Fewer funerals, fewer calls for mourners. The young people have all but stopped seeking you out, and the old mourners are dying one by one. You and Alice travel to their funerals, mourning them the way they taught others to mourn, with real tears, real grief, real presence. Each funeral is a small death of the tradition itself. Each grave marks the end of something that can never be rebuilt. One evening, after burying the last of the old mourners, a woman who learned from Marjorie's mother, who'd been crying for strangers for over 60 years, you and Alice sit by your fire and face what you've been avoiding. "We're the last," Alice says quietly. "Aren't we?" You nod. "The last of the old way. After us, there will be others. There will always be people who cry at funerals, but not like this. Not trained, not passed down, not carrying generations of grief." She's quiet for a long moment. "Does that make you sad?" "Yes and no." You try to find the words. "Sad that it's ending, grateful that I was part of it, proud of what we did, what we carried, and ready, maybe, ready to let it go." Alice nods slowly. "I think I understand." You sit together, watching the fire, feeling the weight of endings and the strange peace that comes with acceptance. "We should write it down," you say suddenly. "Everything, the techniques, the traditions, the stories, so someone, someday, will know, will remember." Alice looks at you. "Can you write?" "No, but you can." She almost smiles. "A little, enough." So you begin. Each evening, by firelight, you dictate, and Alice writes. You tell her about Marjorie's lessons, the breathing, the posture, the voice from the chest. You tell her about the different cries for different deaths, the way to read a family's need, the tricks for faking torn clothes and real tears. You tell her about the families you've helped, the grief you've carried, the moments that broke you and the moments that healed you, and you tell her about the mourners who came before Marjorie, and her mother before her, about the generations of women who cried for strangers, who carried grief for people they'd never meet, who kept the tradition alive through war and plague and persecution. The manuscript grows slowly, a few pages each night. It's not beautiful. Alice's writing is rough, her spelling uncertain, but it's true. It's real. It's everything. When you finish, on a cold winter night, with snow falling outside, you hold the pages in your hands and feel their weight, not heavy, like grief, light, like memory, like something that will last. What do we do with it? Alice asks. You think about this, about the future, about the world that's forgotten why mourners matter, about someone, someday, finding these pages and wondering who wrote them, and why. We hide it, you say, somewhere safe, somewhere dry, and we hope. You hide it in the wall of your hut, behind a loose board, wrapped in oilcloth, to keep out the damp. It's not much, but it's something. It's a chance. That night, lying on your pallet, you think about all the years, all the grief, all the tears. You think about Marjorie's tired eyes, and your mother's blurry face, and the line of mourners stretching back into history. You think about Alice, asleep in the corner, carrying her own weight of grief and memory. And you think about the future, about someone, years from now, finding your manuscript, reading your words, learning about a time when grief had witnesses, when tears were a profession, when mourners carried what others couldn't carry alone. Maybe they'll understand, maybe they'll remember, maybe they'll cry, not for anyone specific, but for all of it, for the weight of history, for the passing of traditions, for the strange, beautiful, heartbreaking work of being human. You close your eyes. Outside, the snow falls silently, covering the world in white. Inside, you sleep, and dream of fields of wheat, and faces you love, and tears that aren't heavy anymore. The winter that takes you is gentle, at least. No sudden fever, no dramatic decline, just a slow fading, like light leaving the sky at the end of the day. You've seen enough deaths to recognize the signs, to know that your time is close. And strangely, you're not afraid. After a lifetime of carrying grief, of witnessing endings, of standing at countless graves, you've made a kind of peace with your own. Alice stays with you through it all. She brings food you barely eat, builds fires you barely feel, sits by your pallet and holds your hand while you drift in and out of sleep. Sometimes you talk, sometimes you're both silent. Sometimes you think you see Marjorie in the shadows, watching, waiting, patient as always. The manuscript, you whisper one evening, your voice thin as winter light. Is it still there? Still there, Alice confirms, safe and dry. I checked yesterday. Could you close your eyes? Let the darkness swirl around you. Someone will find it someday. Someone will understand. Alice squeezes your hand. They will. You think about that. Someone, a stranger in a future you'll never see. Holding pages you helped create, reading words that will carry your voice across centuries. What will they make of it? Will they understand the weight you carried, the grief you witnessed, the strange sacred work of crying for strangers? Or will it just be history to them? Interesting, distant, hard to truly grasp. It doesn't matter. You decide. What matters is that you tried, that you remembered, that you passed on what Marjorie taught you, what her mother taught her, what generations of mourners carried through wars and plagues and the slow erosion of time. Alice, you say, your voice barely audible, I'm here. Thank you for everything, for learning, for staying, for being family. She's quiet for a moment, and when she speaks, her voice is thick. You gave me a life, a real life. Before you, I was just performing, empty. You taught me how to feel, how to be human. Thank you doesn't cover it. You smile, or try to. It covers it. That night, you dream of funerals. Not sad dreams, just memories, playing out like scenes from a life. You see the frozen widow finally breaking, tears streaming down her face as you cry beside her. You see the woman by the well, her dead child in her lap, the moment she finally let go. You see Marjorie's sister, dying against the stone, her last words of thanks. You see Marjorie herself, tired eyes, wise words, final request, and you see your mother, clearer now than she's ever been, standing at the edge of a field, reaching out her hand. Behind her, the line of mourners stretches into infinity. Marjorie, and her mother before her, and on, back to the beginning of grief itself. They're all watching you, all waiting, all welcoming. You take your mother's hand. When you wake, it's dawn. The first light is touching the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Alice is asleep in her corner, exhausted from watching over you. The fire has burned low, but there's still warmth in the room. You lie there, watching the light grow, feeling your body grow lighter with it. The weight you've carried for so long, all those years of grief, all those tears, all those deaths, it's fading now, lifting, leaving. You think about what you'd say. If you could speak to all those mourners who came before, you'd tell them it was worth it. Every funeral, every tear, every moment of carrying what others couldn't carry alone. You'd tell them the tradition survived, not forever, maybe, but long enough to matter, long enough to reach you, and through you, to reach someone else. You'd tell them you're ready. The light grows brighter. The room fills with gold, and somewhere, in the distance, you hear crying, not sad crying, not grieving crying, but something else, something that sounds like welcome. You take a breath, then another, then no more. Alice finds you a few hours later, when she wakes and realizes you're not breathing. She doesn't cry, not then. She just sits beside you for a long time, holding your hand, saying goodbye in her own way. Then she stands, wipes her face, and begins to do what you taught her. She prepares your body the way mourners prepared the dead, gently, respectfully, with the same care you showed so many strangers. She dresses you in Marjorie's shawl, the one with the silver threads that catch the light. She places the small knife in your pocket, the one passed down through generations, the one you carried all these years. She folds your hands across your chest and sits with you through the day, keeping watch, keeping company, keeping faith. The funeral is small. There aren't many mourners left, just Alice and a handful of others, the last of the old way. They gather at your grave, a quiet spot near Marjorie's, and they do what you taught them. They cry, real tears, real grief, real presence. They carry you the way you carried so many others. Alice speaks last, her voice steady despite everything. She taught me how to feel, she says to the small gathering, how to be human, how to carry grief without drowning in it. She was the last of something, the last of a line that stretched back generations. But she was also the first of something, the first to write it down, to leave a record, to make sure someone, someday, would remember. She looks at the simple wooden cross, the fresh earth, the grey winter sky. I'll keep the manuscript safe. I'll add to it her story, my story, the stories of all the mourners I've known, and I'll pass it on, somehow, to someone who'll understand. That's what she'd want. The small group disperses, leaving Alice alone at the grave. She stands there for a long time, watching the light fade, saying her own private goodbyes. Then she walks back to your hut, her hut now, and begins the work of carrying on. Years pass. Alice grows old, as people do. She trains a few more mourners, though fewer each time. She adds to the manuscript, recording names and faces and funerals, building a record of a dying tradition. She keeps the shawl safe, and the knife, and all the small tokens of a life spent carrying grief. And then, one day, she's gone to, buried beside you and Marjorie, in the quiet village graveyard, where the wind whispers through the grass, and the sun sets gold over the fields. The manuscript stays hidden in the wall, wrapped in oilcloth, waiting. Decades pass. Centuries. The village grows, then shrinks, then disappears entirely. The graveyard is forgotten. The names on the crosses worn smooth by weather and time. New people come, build new houses, live new lives. They know nothing of mourners, nothing of the old ways, nothing of the women who cried for strangers and carried grief for generations. But the manuscript waits. One day, centuries later, someone finds it. A worker, maybe, renovating an old building, knocking down a wall, or a child, exploring, pulling at loose boards, or an archaeologist, carefully excavating, uncovering layers of history. Whoever it is, whenever it is, they'll find the oilcloth package, open it carefully, and discover pages covered in rough handwriting. They'll read about Marjorie, and her mother before her, about the frozen widow, the woman by the well, the plague years, the church's persecution, about techniques and traditions, about grief and tears, about the strange sacred work of carrying what others can't carry alone. And maybe, just maybe, they'll understand. They'll feel something stir in their chest, some echo of all those tears, all that grief, all that love. They'll close the manuscript and sit quietly for a moment, thinking about the women who wrote it, the lives they lived, the deaths they mourned, and they'll cry, not for anyone specific, but for all of it, for the weight of history, for the passing of time, for the strange, beautiful, heartbreaking work of being human, just like you hoped. Now lying here in the dark, with the fan humming softly and the blankets pulled up to your chin, think about that. Think about all those tears, all those centuries, all those women who cried for strangers and carried grief for generations. Think about the manuscript, hidden in a wall, waiting to be found. Think about the someone, someday, who'll open it and feel something stir in their chest. That someone could be you. In a way, tonight, it is you. You've heard their stories, carried their grief, witnessed their lives. You've been a mourner too, just for a little while, just by listening. So rest now, let the weight settle somewhere soft. Let the tears come if they need to, or let them wait. There's no performance here, no technique, no shallow water, just you, and the dark, and the quiet hum of the world going on around you. You've carried enough for one night, more than enough. Close your eyes, breathe slow, let the grief float away like smoke, like mist, like memory. You're not alone, you never were. And somewhere, in a village that no longer exists, under a sky full of stars that still shine, a woman with sad eyes is smiling at you, watching over you, thanking you for remembering. Sleep well. Sleep well. End of script. Sweet dreams.